Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the final chapter of the 2021 Native Plant Garden Tour, where we'll explore dormancy, the summer dry season, all the wonderful things that entails. I'm Evan Meyer, the Executive Director at Theodore Payne Foundation, and it's an honor to be spending this Wednesday evening with you. I want to start with a land acknowledgement. Theodore Payne Foundation sits on the land of the Fernandino-Tataviam Band of Mission Indians. And many of you are probably tuning in from Los Angeles, so we want to acknowledge all of our neighbors in Los Angeles County, the Tongva, Chumash, Kitanamuk, and Serrano peoples. And wherever you're coming from, we ask that you acknowledge the indigenous people of the lands that you are on. I've been thinking a lot recently about human beings and our place in the earth, and been thinking a lot about the indigenous perspective, which does not distinguish between the human world and the natural world, between the cultural and the ecological. And I think that's something that many of us could learn from, and many of us need to learn from. The idea that there is a distinction between the human world and the non-human ecological world creates a lot of very destructive forces to the planet. And that is amplified throughout many facets of our culture and our lives. But it really shows up very obviously in the way that we treat our land and our landscapes. And that's what we're going to think about tonight is how can we live in harmony with our ecology and with our climate? And that's really what this dormant summer recap of the Native Plant Garden Tour is going to focus on, is living in harmony with the seasons, learning to embrace them, reframing our perspective of what is beautiful and how we should perceive our gardens and what their purpose is and what makes them wonderful and interesting. So with that, I'm just so excited and honored to be here. And I want to introduce my co-host for the evening, Erin Johnson, Director of Public Programs at Theodore Payne Foundation. Hi, Erin.
Hey, Evan. It's great to be back.
Yeah, it's like 6 months since we did this last.
I know, April. It feels like a lifetime ago.
It does.
Oh my gosh. Well, for anyone who is joining us here for the first time, Theodore Payne Foundation is a nonprofit native plant nursery and education center. And we were founded in 1960. And for the past 18 years, we've been hosting garden tours to get people out into the world to see what these gardens look like at their peak moment, which is spring. And over the years, we've featured more than 600 gardens. And again, this was our, in real life experience. And because we couldn't gather together in 2021, we decided to take the opportunity to show you what these landscapes look like as they change throughout the seasons. And so we picked 8 very different gardens. We took both winter and spring footage that we showed you all back in spring. In April. If you want to take a look at that, that's all on our YouTube channel. So you can see that there. And then we returned in August to see what these gardens look like after months and months of no rain at all. And so today we want to celebrate the beauty of this time of year. We want to, share how these plants have adapted to survive these long, hot, dry summers, as well as strategies for gardeners and philosophies to think about this time of year. So we could not have done this without the very generous support of our sponsors. Thank you so much. And a big thanks to our oak sponsors, who are LA Native Plant Source and the Gottlieb Native Garden. And thank you so much.
Both beautiful spaces, which you'll see today.
Yes. I can't wait to jump into those. A quick plug, we have a huge event coming up at Theodore Payne Foundation, which is our fall plant sale. And this is our biggest event of the year, where we also have the largest selection, ranging from both plants, seeds, and bulbs. So you can sign up for that through Eventbrite. You do have to reserve a spot so that we can have a space for you in the parking lot and maintain social distancing, but we hope to see you out at the foundation. So Evan, what is dormancy?
I'm so glad you asked. And to answer that question, we're going to leave Southern California. We're going to go pretty far away, actually. If I can get it queued up here. Oops, sorry, give me 1 second. Apologies. Okay, here we go. We're leaving Southern California and heading into this beautiful forest. Where are we, Erin?
All right, so we are in northern Germany. This was a visit I took a couple years ago to visit my in-laws, and you can see we're walking through this beautiful forest that's preparing for winter. And one of the ways that these trees prepare is losing all of their leaves and dropping them. And this is such a classic way that we view fall and think about fall, and is one of the most celebrated times of year.
Well, it definitely is where I grew up, which is literally this image. My sister sent me this today. This is Western Massachusetts, a town called Charlemont. And every autumn, every fall, the leaf peepers would descend upon us from Boston and New York and clog up the roads driving 30 miles an hour in the 50-mile-per-hour zones. And they came specifically to see the leaves. It is a huge thing that people really appreciate, the cycle of the plants going dormant in New England. So we started in Germany, we've hopped across the pond to Massachusetts, we'll continue heading west. A couple images, the Great Plains of Nebraska,
Wow.
Dormant under a blanket of snow, and those plants there, as you can see, are fully dormant. There's no leaves, there's no flowers. Heading outside of Santa Fe to some of the landscape of the winter. I don't see any flowers there, don't see any leaves.
That's stunning.
And we arrived back here in Southern California in the San Gabriel Mountains. This is a few days before New Year's this past year. And here we have snow and we have dormant plants. And so the seasons and the cycles of dormancy that we typically think of are really tapped into a particular part of the world, which is the Northern Hemisphere, where we have these, the quote unquote seasons that we learn in school: spring, summer, fall, winter. And they don't exist in all parts of the world, and they don't actually exist in the same way in lower elevation Southern California, as we'll find out today. And we've often tried to superimpose other parts of the world into our landscape here, but we are hopefully going to convince you, or you've already been convinced, I'm sure, if you're watching right now, that there are better ways to think about the landscape. And so we have about 160, 180 photographs, all taken by Marie Astrid Gonzalez, who is here helping administer the Zoom, and Erin's actually at her house right now. Amazing, wonderful photography that you'll see tonight. And I've had the joy of combing through all of these images, and we'll see transitions from these gardens going from winter to spring and into summer, and see how they change. And the thing that just really struck me throughout the whole process of going through these photos was that the land was breathing. You see these cycles, these rhythms happening. They expand, they contract, they come, they go. It's not the same thing all the time, and that's what's beautiful about it. And to see it in that four-dimensional way has been such an inspiring journey for me. I've always said that gardening is a four-dimensional art form, one which is spatial and temporal, and you'll really see that tonight through these photographs. So the argument that I'd like to make as sort of a meta narrative for tonight is that the land is breathing, and we need to let it breathe. We need to let it go through its cycles, and if we do that, we can save a lot of water, we can build a lot of habitat, and we can have a lot of beauty and connection to the place we live. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing this photo, and Erin's going to kick off a video. If you were with us this spring, you'll recognize the song we're about to hear. This is a song by our friend Daniel Riera, aka Tito Tunes, and he played a show on the opening night of our spring tour Friday night. So go back to YouTube and check that out. And here we go. Little preview of what we'll see.
All right.
All right, we're back, back to the gardens, back in the summer. One thing that we didn't mention, this is a live unscripted conversation, and we want you to be part of it. So please use the chat. Tell us the things you do in your garden in the summer, your thoughts about what you're seeing, any questions you have, any dreams you want to share, any ideas. It's all fair game. This is a live conversation, so I'd love to hear from you. And I would not be a good executive director if I didn't mention that we are a 501c3 nonprofit. And if you're inspired by anything you see tonight, we would be very honored if you consider making a tax-deductible donation to support programming like this and all the other work that we do here at Theodore Payne Foundation. With that, I'm going to queue up our first garden presentation of the evening. Erin, where are we headed?
All right. We are headed to the heart of the city, to a garden known as Casa Apocalyptica. And this is a garden full of California native plants reclaiming urban ruins. And so we are going to queue up Chris Elwell and Corey Odell, the homeowners. And this garden was started in 2008. Hey, Chris and Corey.
Hello. Hey.
So good to see you.
Hey, guys. So I'm gonna.
Hey guys, happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. We'll start with a couple of framing shots. So here's your home in springtime, and then here's what it becomes in summer. And I'll just do a quick toggle: spring, summer. What do you guys think about when you see this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you know, both periods are interesting to us, probably for different reasons. There are different things happening. But, you know, I mean, obviously some of the plants have pulled back. You'll see on the left, you know, and that sagebrush is canyon gray is like really full, and it pulls back and looks kind of craggy. But, you know, in the dormant period, it's kind of haunted looking like the house. The helianthus there have gone dormant, but honestly, those are full of goldfinches. Yeah,
that's like, so basically this becomes birdseed fees.
Yeah, so it's really fun actually. Those dried seed heads just sit there and like feed birds all summer. It's really cool.
And we tend to leave stuff in a little longer just because it's such an attraction for birds.
Wow.
Totally. And so here's one more transition from winter, spring, into summer.
God, I love these pictures you guys did, because it's something I've never gotten around to doing myself, but taking them from the same angle really.
And we've kind of come to the consensus over years is that we just embrace dormancy. We don't fight it. We don't try to do excess watering in order to keep the garden green. It's a natural cycle, and you know, we've come to enjoy it, and it's a stage of our garden. And you know, you see different animals, different birds come in and just utilize the garden at different points, and they depend on this dormancy.
This section is a good one actually, because there's a bunch of different, because we're pretty conscious of dormancy as we plant and landscape, and this is a good one because it has a few of the different strategies evident in it. One is obviously, yeah, so here everything in the spring, you don't have to do anything. Everything's just going bananas. When you click to the dormant period in this slide, you'll see a lot of the evergreens, and especially the tall shrubby and tree-like evergreens. Still, you know, it keeps it from looking like, you know, like barrens, like a complete barren. So that's one thing, is just kind of evergreens. This is also a spot where we have a water feature. You can't see it directly here, but the reason there's so many ferns in the foreground is that's a creek feature, and it flows down on the left of the screen towards that pagoda. So as long as there's water, the aquatic and riparian plants, a lot of them keep going in the summer because they're not limited by water. They just have more sunlight. And then some of the things that look nice dormant, just because structurally, some of the grasses, you'll see the light catching some of the grasses. I'm pointing as though you guys can see what I'm pointing at. You can't. But there's some dried grasses kind of in the right center, and also some fuchsias, and those really work. Oh, and then
Evan, you might be able to point with your mouse too, so people can see the plants.
Can you guys see my mouse?
There's the fuchsias.
Your mouse, yes.
There are the fuchsias, and I think we'll get a close-up of this, but look at this Dudley. This really catches my eye.
When you can see the transition of the fuchsia, as you move into summer, it becomes almost predominant.
Yeah,
And you don't even notice it in spring.
It's not even there really, and then all of a sudden, boom.
Bam.
It grew there on its own too. We didn't put it there.
Oh, wow.
They do tend to spread around quite a bit.
And then probably the other thing that we've done a lot of is we have, part of the vibe of our garden is recycled materials and kind of that apocalyptic thing. So we reused a lot of the materials on site, but they have a function during the dormant period. When the plants pull back, you can see them more. So we kind of plan for places where we know the plant is going to go dormant, and then you have something else to look at, another attraction. So that cliff structure there is kind of interesting even when it's barren.
Absolutely. And this Dudley is just so striking to kind of see this in real time. This is a live forever, this plant here.
I wish they did.
This one's
this one's pretty good.
Yeah, this one's been here for many years now.
Yeah.
There it is, going into bloom. We didn't catch it in full bloom, unfortunately. Can't win them all, but then it becomes this. I mean,
They just desiccate and then
totally desiccates. And then it'll come back again next year. It's, it's this process. It's breathing, it's living, it's alive. Plants are
And the
not
desiccated form itself is really cool.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
wouldn't call it lush, but I think it's really interesting and really cool.
the colors change, the whole composition change. It's hunkering down for the summer.
And you can
Yeah.
really see the chalk too. That's one of its strategies for surviving the summer, is actually reflecting instead of absorbing the
Right.
sunlight with that white chalky substance.
And so when we went through all those images of the temperate winter and fall, really our equivalent in Southern California is the summer. I don't know if I made that clear enough, but summer is kind of, analogous to those dormant seasons of farther north places. When things go to sleep, they're hunkering down. But
What you see behind the pagoda there is an extreme form of dormancy, which is when a big mature plant just dies. We lost a beautiful ironwood back there. I'm still bummed about it.
Oh, God.
oh yeah, I remember.
Oh well, happens to everybody. That's a nice shot.
I think you got it in bloom there, actually, that Dudley a little bit.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah. And then this is a really striking feature of your patio. Here we are in the winter. Here we are in the spring. Just totally changes. And not only the grape arbor, but also the buckwheat by this little.
And that Rogers Red grape is an exact. I mean, you can kind of cobble together, in contrast to like those, shots you showed of like New England and stuff, where things follow up. Everything's kind of singing the same song in the dormant period. Here, everything. It's kind of like in California, you go out and like. One person's wearing a t-shirt, another one's wearing a puffy jacket, someone else is wearing shorts. The plants are kind of like that too. That Rogers Red grape though follows a very East Coast pattern of dormancy. So, you can kind of see it behind us, but in another month, it's going to turn red. So we're going to get just really nice, a New England caliber foliage color change.
But no leaf peepers coming by.
You have our own
for
traffic
Marie and
problems
I.
here. I don't know if LA traffic could handle leaf peepers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good point, that particularly plants like the grape, which come from riparian type habitats, they do follow a different cycle where they're usually following something more akin to the East Coast or other northern climates around the world.
And look at is that the holly leaf cherry on the left side?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is an amazing, vibrant color green for this time of year.
Mm-hmm. And they'll remain that. We're using more and more of them. We're located in the LA basin, and we've had a lot of trial and error with things. Those holly leaf cherries, that's the island one. The Alyssa, I forget which name that is, but that does really well here. So we're going to keep doing more of them. And there's the fruit on the grape, which is obviously.
Yeah. So now we've kind of gone through some transitions and seen the seasons change, and now we'll just kind of hone in on what's beautiful, or what, to Marie's eye and to our eye, what we thought was most beautiful in the summer garden. Obviously, fruits like grapes are a big part, and we'll see a lot of those over the course of the evening. Flowers.
We had a lot of the fruiting plants. It's good because the fruits hang around longer than the flowers. So Oregon grapes, some of the currants, grapes. What else do we have? The toyon. There's the elderberries. There's a lot of fruit around here, and that kind of lets you cheat the flowering season. It keeps going because the fruit hangs around longer.
So we have this buckwheat flower. We'll see a lot of buckwheat flowers over the course of the evening, and I want to start a little conversation here because you see the spider webs. We're going to start the great spider web movie 2021. To leave or not to leave? That is the question. Do we leave spider webs?
We love them
In our gardens.
We've
Okay.
We've actually had people come, garden architects, and it's like, well, what about all these spider webs you don't clean up? And it's like, well, this garden's as much for them as it is for us, and they love it. I mean, so we leave them.
When you get enough of them, they're so cool because they look like they catch dew and they shimmer, they catch the light. They're really cool. All those funnel web spiders are all over the place here.
Okay, Casa Apocalyptica takes its stand on Team Spider for
Oh,
Halloween.
100%.
We actually have names for some of them, so
The spiders?
yeah, we know where they hang out during the day.
What's one of their names?
Well, there's Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
That's a very good spider name. Here we have another buckwheat and the beautiful rust brick and then the rust color of the buckwheat here.
And we've used a lot of buckwheats around. I don't remember if we've got pictures in here, but we have used a lot of them around the swimming pool because they flower later, and then they also the rusty flowers, the dried flowers are still really cool, and it's nice around an area where you're hanging out a lot in August.
Yeah, I think we do have those in a little bit. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But we wanted to throw this out there, the mountain mahogany.
Oh yeah, those really catch the afternoon light. They're just beautiful.
We didn't see too many in the gardens that we featured this year. I think you were one of the few gardens that really has, a prominent mountain mahogany, but this is a great plant, locally native, and it's very showy in the summertime when it goes into fruit like this.
The flowers are cute too. They're little tiny flowers, almost the size of like little euphorbia flowers, but they're pretty. And the tree has like a pale yellow period that gets a lot of pollinators, and then the seeds, when the whole tree is covered in those, the whole thing just glows. It's very cool.
So that was mountain mahogany. Somebody was asking on the chat.
Cool. Just a little ladybug interlude here. And this plant, I think this is an unsung hero of the summer.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
We always grow this and end up selling it like on discount because nobody wants to buy it. And I don't know why, because it's
indestructible.
Indestructible. This is gum plant, Grindelia, indestructible, and it blooms right in the middle of the summer. You can coppice it.
It probably isn't showy also at the time when people are buying plants, because everyone's told don't plant natives in the summer. So they go to the nursery and they pick out what's blooming. But these, I agree, and they also seed, and when they dry up. So here you've caught everything. Marie caught everything, not only a little inchworm on the flower, but the dried flower head, and then the bud with the exude in it. And then when they get really ratty, you can just cut them to the ground.
You won't kill it.
You can't kill it.
Yeah. We use this almost as a foundation planting. It becomes a foundation planting in our parkways.
Yeah.
In the summer.
And it gives you like kind of that aster daisy flower going all summer long.
And they call it gum plant because you see that bud towards the side of the screen. It's almost sticky to the touch. And the Theodore Payne nursery, as you walk up towards the kind of main central area, there's a big patch of it right to your left.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not familiar with this plant, come visit us and you'll see it.
So many pollinators too, just a huge variety of our local bees.
And then here's that buckwheat by the pool. And you guys are daring with your growth over the pool. You really let it hang out there.
This has been pruned back. You can see on the left of the screen, that's a bunch of red buckwheat that self-seeds around there too. And that's been pruned back at this point. We just cut the stalks off, but the island buckwheat is, the arboreus there is that what it is? Yeah, anyway, Santa Cruz Island. Yeah, Santa Cruz Island, that's still going.
We just like the aquamarine colors of this one.
Yeah, it's a pretty shot.
Another really beautiful plant of the summer, This is the Flugia Apache plume. I think that's a common name, right?
Yep.
With those beautiful feathery seed, the pappus to the seed, which helps it disperse in the wind.
It seems to be a runner.
Yes. Yeah, they kind of
Slowly.
clonally spread around.
Yeah, it slowly runs. And again, this is another one of the our indestructible plants. It's been no problem at all.
A lot of these plants that are a little showy in the summer too. Some of them are kind of overlap in the southwestern desert. Those do well in Los Angeles here, and so they're accustomed to some monsoon moisture. So you can give them a little bit extra water, and they still look good in the summer.
Yeah, totally. Those desert monsoonal plants are actually pretty easy in that you can kind of overwater them and they'll.
Yeah, penstemons do that too. Actually, we're doing more and more of them.
Or Datura.
So this is the final photo. Time is going to be brief with each garden. We could spend a lot more time with you guys, but yeah, this is Datura. Any final closing thoughts on either this Datura or just the summer garden in general before we head over to our next garden?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's probably it's probably a hurdle. Getting over the hurdle of addressing dormancy is a challenge for a lot of people. But once you kind of get into it and see some examples, I think people realize it can be really cool.
Yeah, and also like people think that Los Angeles or Southern California doesn't have seasons, and that's just their perception of the weather and not of the plants. There's definitely a season in Southern California. I think it's very pronounced. You see it in the plants. You know, that spring cycle is short, everything just goes absolutely crazy, and then there's other plants that take advantage of different points in the season. And I think that, you know, that comment that Southern California doesn't have seasons, it's just a disconnection from the plant community, because there's
Well said.
Obviously we have seasons.
Yep. And native plant gardening will tap you in at the season.
You will definitely understand them.
And it will humble you to the seasons too, as we'll see today. Thank you guys so much for joining us in 2021. I think, well, I don't want to give too much away, but 2022 garden tour, I think we'll maybe be able to see you in person again. Many thanks, Chris and Corey, Casa Apocalyptica.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
All right, so I will now queue up our next garden of the evening. Erin, do you want to introduce?
Yeah, we are headed to Chinatown, to Los Angeles State Historic Park. And for anyone who hasn't been there, it's a huge, beautiful park. It's 32 acres. It opened relatively recently. It's been open for a few years, but this is really a garden that was forged by the community. And we're going to catch up now with Luis Rincon. And he is a TPF board member and the community engagement coordinator at the park. Hey, Luis.
Hello, good evening. Good evening, everyone. It's always a delight to share the park with so many folks, and it's been able to reach some of the native plant community with Theodore Payne through this garden tour. So appreciate all the staff that helped make that happen. Special thanks.
Yeah, thank you for being with us this whole time. It's been a fun process, and I've learned so much about this amazing park. So can you just kind of set the stage for where we are right now, Luis?
Yeah, you're in this riparian zone in this little biosol area next to our welcome center, and you're looking at the downtown skyline overlooking Chinatown.
In springtime, and then we look to the left, see the trees, all the flowers, and wow, it changes a lot here. Again, so these seasonal changes are part of any native plant landscape, big scale or small scale. We have a pretty big scale here. And so this space here, Luis, what is the kind of intent for this?
We're a LA River Parkway project, so we're right next to the LA River, like we're in the industrial area of LA, the first industrial zone. So the idea is to reconnect people back to the river and have people look at the landscape and be connected to it. And it's a historical park, so we're hoping to tap into the history of Los Angeles, and also even the what native plants how they can guide us to that space. So there's a lot of different themes going on in this park, but it's great. But it's great to connect people with through the right periods. And we have the willow right here. We also have some juncus in the background. This is more like of a wild space. So we're trying to create a habitat zone, and that's one node of the park. We also have an agricultural node, which helps us talk about the history. But the idea was we were allowing ourselves to be like a 50% plant palette of native plants. So we also have lawn. So we have tons of lawn here. Yeah, but aside from that, we see the sycamores here throughout the seasons, just giving out shade in the summer.
People really use that lawn too, Luis, right? When you go there, there's like people playing soccer, and there's people, the lawn is not being
wasted. Yeah. I mean, well, here's a good chat question, and I can't talk and read the chat at the same time, so I'm going to go back and read it. It's at intermission or something, but. Lawns, is there a time when lawns make sense? I mean, for me, my personal opinion on this, like if it's a large municipal landscape and there's a lot of people using it, that's probably the place where a lawn might make sense. If it's like the front of your house and it never gets walked on, I just don't think it ever makes sense to do that. So totally. Not all lawns are the same, I would say.
No, and nothing was so refreshing in our recent rains here. So one way that we like to highlight, when we highlight the lawn, a lot of folks, especially during this past year in the drought, people are always like, "Why are you irrigating?" And we're happy to share that our partners at the LADWP we're part of the recycle recipients of their Purple Pipe recycle water reuse program. So that's an awesome. I guess great use of the resource before we send it out to the ocean. We can put it back in the park, and part of the park design as well is to capture that water in the park. There's a lot of rainwater capture features in the park as well.
That's amazing. The recycling of water, and shout out to DWP, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, one of our sponsors, along with the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, who also sponsored us this year. So here we have grapevines again that we just saw at Casa Apocalyptica, and here we have the grapes. And Luis, you're a bit of a viticulturist. Is that what you're saying?
No, just I make garden wine with this stuff, and it's just a fun project, and we hope to engage some of the public. At this point, we just engage a few partners and our staff. But the goal ultimately with having this fruit and this Rogers Red hang here is to engage the public. You see how many people come and pick it and are eating the fruit, as well as the birds and the wildlife, but they also enjoy it. So it's a great way to use agriculture, or to use like this landscape to kind of cover the park, coat the park around the fence, but also we're using it to talk about a little bit about the history. This used to be wine country, and it used to be we're right next to the LA River. A lot of these vines were fed by the LA River. So and it's touching a little bit about the viticultural history of Los Angeles. So we're using that means that, Los Angeles is really based in agriculture. So we use that with our orange grove as well. We have 32 Valencia oranges in the park. But this is a great way to have folks really kind of be like, what? There's grapes growing in this park, and so they can enjoy that part as well.
I've tried the wine because you gave me a little taste, and it's pretty good. I have to say, you did a good job. And you said you made 5 gallons this year in our earlier conversation, which is crazy to me, but I love it. And, our official partners association wants to auction that stuff off, but I'm just like, at this point, I don't think it's. We made port, and it was delicious, a nice sweet wine. It's great for the holidays, but we hope to be able to.
Got a bottle.
Crack it open, Aaron.
No. After. Cheers.
Cheers, Aaron.
So as we went through the season, we not only captured the plants changing, we also just captured landscapes changing. So here we have winter, then we got into summer. And what are we seeing here, Luis?
Here what we're seeing a sculpture by Eddie Aparicio. It's called La Panza del Pueblo, which is the town's or the community's stomach. And so he wanted to use this piece as a functional art piece, a functional oven. Not only does it draw your attention because it has a bunch of like spikes and horns on it. Someone else mentioned that it looked like a particular plant, but it was with this, he wanted to tie in different cultures. We had community events, people from Chinatown, people from the Salvadoran community, as well as our maintenance staff cooking pizzas in this oven. And it was something that, like, a great art piece that we could share and connect folks and connect with the piece. And art is definitely a part of the theme. I mean, if we it was Lewis McAdams who said, LA River is a 40-year art project. So we want to embrace that narrative and also continue that work with embracing the arts as well, embracing that community.
Yeah, I know this site because this is where Sage Against the Machine played a couple weeks ago, and it was pretty fun. It was really fun.
This is our campfire site. If you come now, you won't see the sculpture, unfortunately. But yeah, it's great to share the park, and that's a beautiful overlooking the downtown skyline. It really is one way that we sell the park.
Evan's in a band, you guys, in case you didn't know. Called Sage Against the Machine. Follow them on Instagram. Come to the next show.
So now we're going to hone in on just some of the like plant features of the park in the summertime. So we'll start with some flowers like this Encilia.
Yeah, it's a beautiful. The idea behind some of the plants is that you could see the colors throughout the park, throughout the season. So definitely seasonality is a challenge, especially during the summer when it's dry.
And
here's our apricot mallow.
Apricot mallow, and I think you have a couple different types. So that's sort of the more standard Sphaerosia ambigua, and I believe that's a cultivar, the rose colored one. So those are great.
Yeah, this was great. We always want people to feel drawn to our. This is in our wetlands area, so it's at the far end, the one closest to Broadway, closest to the LA River. We have these large array of. You have apricot mallow, and we also have this beautiful apricot mallow, or Indian mallow, if you may.
Jumping forward here, one that's another great summer plant, the datura, sacred datura.
Yeah, and this is outside our welcome center, and this was planted by one of our volunteers who really likes datura, who's collected the seeds and planted the seeds here. And we put it in our scent garden, but we were warned that can get people a little sick if they touch it. So we I don't know, we're considering maybe remove it. I love it to showcase it as a peanut butter plant. So it smells like peanut butter. So it definitely has a wonderful scent.
I think I don't know if you'd get sick from touching it. I think you'd have to actually eat it, because I've touched it a lot and never had any issues. Study group of one, but and then there's this one that we saw a lot of this there. This is the evening primrose. What do you think of this plant, Luis?
I love it. It's taken over our wetlands area. You see it growing everywhere, but what I really love about this plant is that it was able to engage our maintenance. They really thought it was beautiful when it's sprouting out of the ground. It looks like a little weed, and initially they were pulling it, but through its growth and its showy flowers, it was great to really engage our maintenance staff who like, I could say, like, through this plant they definitely connected a little bit more with the native palette that we have here. Sharing an introductory class, and we had this was the gateway. The evening primrose was the gateway. Be like, what's that beautiful plant? What's the name of it? And so it was just that it provoked inquiry. So that was, and we have some of our staff. So one beautiful story about that plant that was able to help our staff kind of get trained, and so we went to the California Native landscape training, and so it's enriching for all of us when we can all participate in those trainings as well. But yeah, this is dormant.
Yeah, this is that same evening primrose, which is kind of, it will spread a lot. It definitely moves. So if you have a really manicured garden, that's probably not the right choice. But this is what it does when it dries out later in the summer. And the spider debate continues. So who here does not like spider webs in their garden? Put chat out, because I think that's probably the more traditional idea of ornamental horticulture. You get rid of the spider webs. It's fine, don't feel free to put your opinions out there in the chat. Let's see. Okay, nobody's chatting back about the spider, but I'm just curious because it's sort of like some of these ideas are a little challenging, right? To leave spider webs in kind of full display. But if you really think about it from the perspective of ecology, well, spiders are playing a key role in eating insects and being part of the food chain and feeding larger birds. And there was a really neat little fact that we learned in the spring, that spider webs are an important part of hummingbird nests. So leaving them is actually beneficial to the hummingbirds. This plant, Luis, is you're one of the few gardens that uses this one a lot on the 2021 tour.
Yeah, the golden brush, we've used it kind of as a means to like separate each little piece of the park, but it also helps illuminate like the garden, as well as create habitat for our wetlands area. So a large of this golden brush is concentrated in the wetlands area. We got some that are like up to 6 feet tall. It's wonderful. We love the constant bloom, and just to see all the butterflies and all the birds that are attracted to this particular plant in the wetlands area.
Yeah, and the beauty of this plant continues into the fall when it sets these beautiful seeds. This image, to me, I just thought was really evocative of what you guys are doing at State Historic Park, which is bringing nature right there into the city. You see downtown in the background there.
Yeah, this is a really awesome plant. You could see all along the LA River, and it's this beautiful buckwheat was a lot of it behind the idea of what was we can from this particular point in the park. It's where we have another sculpture, and this California buckwheat. You could see the downtown skyline, but it's a historical park, so it helps us look what we did with the brownfield. This was a former rail yard, and through the community action and participation, we've created this native space. A lot of those golden brushes that we saw earlier were there planted by the community, and so it's something to see for the community to see it grow and see it change.
And have you guys brought the volunteers back to the garden, or are you guys still on hold with the pandemic?
We've slowly started to come back, bringing volunteers. Our next volunteer day is the 20th of this month, so it'll be here at Los Angeles State Historic Park. We do it through the State Parks Foundation. Just a plug for the California State Parks Park Champions program. That it's through volunteer work that we got to do a lot of the work in our beautiful wetlands area.
Awesome.
So I keep us moving here just really quick. I want to get your 10-second take on these next couple images, Luis. So right here, what are we?
We have coastal cactus. We also have what we call tunas, and that a lot of people ask me about. Are these the one that you eat if you can eat them? And I generally tell people, I leave them for the birds. But we also planted this in areas we don't want people climbing. There's a lot of little hillsides where people see the spikes and can kind of stay away from the area. You'll see them around some of the structures in the park. So we're using the plants to kind of create a little space for the birds and whatnot.
Defensive planting, and then we head into the fruits of the sycamore.
Yeah, this beautiful sycamores, are throughout the park. Some of them were large specimens brought in from a construction site, but here we have the seed pods, and it's beautiful to see the volunteers sprouting out of the ground, and really indicator of we're introducing health back into the landscape.
And then this was the only time we'll see this tonight, this particular plant. What are we looking at here, Luis?
This is the alder. So one of the ideas, and we have this plant, and I was, I wanted to showcase. We try to put as many of the different plants in California because we knew a lot of the folks that were. This was going to be the gateway park, the introductory park to all the parks in the California State Park system. This was going to be the first California State Park that a lot of the communities, surrounding communities, would visit. So we wanted to try to introduce. So we have different types. We try to, plant different types of species or whatnot.
Yeah, that's a beautiful, and we end on this image of the salvia and the visitor center, this sort of mix of the natural vegetation with modern architecture and what can be done. It's not an all or none. We can have a city that has all the modern beauty and urban design that we love, with plants that support ecology and save water and natural resources. I wish we had more time, Luis, but we've got to get on to our next garden. So any closing thoughts on the summertime at State Historic Park?
No, summertime, it's glorious here. You get to look at the downtown skyline and really get to see all the special events and whatnot we have at the park. We also have some awesome public programming. We hope that through this, someone posted in the question, they said, "Hey, do you engage much of the Chinatown folks?" And a lot of folks from the community of Chinatown are here. We get introduced sages, and we had a lot of beautiful exchanges introducing to the community through letting them know that this is a medicinal plant. That this was Tongva land, that these plants were thrived all over Southern California. So that's always something that we like to share within the park. But that's just a little closing comment that it's for us. We love it, and we want to share it with everyone.
Thank you, Luis. And quick little teaser for what's coming in 2022, the after party of the 2022 Native Plant Garden Tour at State Historic Park. Everybody should be there. It's going to be a blast. Hopefully the pandemic is really behind us by then. It'll be outdoors and just lots of fun. And I look forward to getting together in person with everyone and Luis and hanging out together and enjoying these beautiful plants.
Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be a good time. We're always love to showcase the park like that.
Cool. Thanks so much, Luis. Well, we're going to move on to our next garden. And we're a little bit behind schedule, so apologies. We're just, there's a lot to talk about, and we're just off the cuff with this. So where are we headed next, Sarah? I'm going to get it queued up.
All right. So we are going to West Hollywood now. And this is a formal garden that's designed to complement a colonial revival home. And it's right on Hollywood Boulevard. And so this is the home of Robert Harrison and Ken McFarlane. And this has been on the tour a couple times in the past. And we're really excited to have Sean and Lee from Studio Petrichor here today to tell us about some of the concepts they were dealing with when they designed this. So hey, Sean and Lee, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Welcome. So like all the other gardens, we'll start with just some framing kind of shots and transition through the seasons with them. So we're looking south from Hollywood Boulevard right now, is that correct, Sean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This beautiful home. And we see the major kind of change in this landscape is occurring on the right side with that beautiful plant that you've chosen on the right there. What are we looking at?
Mount San Bruno coffeeberry on the right, yeah. Eriogonum grande rubescens, the red buckwheat, and on the left, the Mount San Bruno coffeeberry.
And we'll see one of the really striking things about this garden is the trees and the red buds. And if anyone had a chance to see the little promo video that we cut together of walking down the alley in the backyard, pretty amazing. But here we go, just the growth and the change throughout the season. That red buckwheat, what sort of, as a designer, what draws you to that plant, Sean?
Honestly, the leaf form is the most exciting, and it's, to me, foundational. At least most of the year, it's got a more foundational look. But then, of course, when you get into summer, it starts to tighten up, dry up, and look sleepy. But really it's about the leaves. And of course you can't go wrong with those summer pink and red flowers. And what I love about it is that depending on where you buy it or who's growing it, you might get a lighter pink and you might get a redder pink. And combining them is really exciting.
Totally. Yeah, it's a pretty variable in that way. So here we have this alley in the backyard, and I encourage everyone to go back and listen to the original kind of interview where there's we discuss a lot of the kind of design features, but this transition here is one of the most striking transitions that Marie was able to capture. Winter, spring, summer. What a change that it goes through. And so that's, I mean, you know, in traditional gardening, that type of kind of, I don't know if you call it European style, but just more formal gardening. Do you typically see that real big shifts of growth and moving like that, Sean, or you know, what, you know, do you think about this differently when designing with native plants versus more conventional plant choices?
This was really about framing the chaos, I suppose. And in a nutshell, I mean, ever since I met this one here, I have had to let go of my illusion of control in the garden. And when I started doing design and my education in landscape architecture, I've witnessed that there's a strong emphasis on control that's in our DNA. It's passed down to us. And it's been an amazing journey to start to let go of the need for control and actually, you know, flow with nature. And this was the real first experiment in that. And so we put together the plant palette, we threw it down, and some didn't make it. The soil was very tricky, and some did, and we learn as we go. And this is 3 years in, and it's been the most rewarding experience.
We now indulge ourselves with chaos.
I like that. I like that. You know, I'm really curious. We have a lot of photos to talk about, but I'm curious, Lee and Sean, how did you guys start working together? What's the story there? Is there a really quick Cliff Notes version of that?
I don't know.
I don't know that we can reveal that.
Drawn together universally. I'm pretty sure we hung out in past lives. Who knows? But it was recommended that when I began my journey in exploring climate change and more regenerative practices, that they said, get together with Lee. And I did. And it was, we hit it off.
It works.
Cool, cool. It's just a really interesting combination of ideas and skills. This very, you know, environmental, holistic, kind of earth-based practice layered on with some formal design practices. It's the friendliest and most rewarding tug of war I've ever experienced.
That's accurate.
So we want to hone in on some of the beautiful details of the summer garden over there in West Hollywood. Talked about the red buckwheat. Here it is, and it's full of glory.
The clients went on vacation the first summer and came home to a field of this surrounding their entry.
Yeah.
Wow.
They were very, very happy.
Yeah. And now it has jumped. It has jumped, and it's starting to pop up, and that's what's so exciting, because where the Mount San Bruno coffee berries didn't make it, this is replacing it.
Oh, neat.
And so that's that notion of letting go of control. The Mount San Bruno was meant to be a parterre, a frame to that circular area in the front, and we tried and some just didn't take. And so let go.
I love that. And that's, you know, it's like the gardener and the architect, these two kind of the friction between those things, and finding a way to merge those is really beautiful. Here, we just talked about the different colors. I just wanted to, this really highlights that, the deep kind of pink, and then you get into this, I think it's a little later in the season, and you're getting more of an off pink kind of color here with the fountain in the background. And even
Also
paired
wanted to
with-
give a quick shout out to Max Cantor with Saturate LA.
Yeah, he's been maintaining this beautifully, and we have the most magical relationship on all of our projects together.
We designed for an embrace of our disparate practices, an embrace of our clients, an embrace of nature, and an embrace of our community. And Max is very much a part of that.
This plant will start to show up a bit more.
The winner.
The winner.
The winner, yeah. What if you guys want to give a quick breakdown of what we're looking at here?
The desert marigold, the Bailey multiradiata. I've never seen a plant look so beautiful and bloom year round. And we intermixed it into the blue grama and Carex panza meadow, which might seem to many on this call as an odd combination, because one needs, one kind of asks for a little bit more water, and you get this cool season, warm season contrast. And in the background is the alkali sacaton, the sporobulus grass, which is also very showy. But we're going to be planting some more of this just because it goes so well with the Bouteloua blue grama, and it likes this spot.
There it is again. Yeah, I mean, this is another one of those just foolproof plants. It's such a good one, so durable, takes so little water.
And the foliage is a shocking silver. I mean, it's just brilliant.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful garden plant for urban LA. And this one too is a really nice one.
Yeah, if you can get I love the silver carpet version, and sometimes I mentioned this before that you order it, and sometimes you get the bushier version, and this ground cover of the formerly known Lysingea, now Corythrogeny. Did I say that correctly? Corythrogeny?
Yeah, Corythrogeny, that's correct. Yeah.
And then I'm going to massacre the last Philogena foliaris.
That was good. That was good. No, you nailed it.
Silver carpet, and it's beautiful. And I have it at my house, and in my garden, it has been without water for a month. We do a deep soak every month, and yes, it's tightened up, but it's alive.
Interplays very nicely with the ceanothus here.
Yeah, that's a Herstorium, the chocolate scented.
This rush. So now we're getting into more of the wetland, and we'll see a lot more blooms in this next little sequence here. Or actually, excuse me, we won't see more blooms, but I know you have a little backstory on this fern.
Yeah, Chris and Corey, I hope you're here. Thank you. You said they handed me a huge chunk of this maidenhair fern and said, just throw it anywhere. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't get planted. No, just stick it anywhere. So I stuck it on this urbanite fountain in the little crevices. And those little broken pieces I stuck in there, and they're flourishing, and they're starting to cover the fountain. So
that is so cool.
What a winner.
This plant you don't see too often. This is one that I'm familiar with from New England, but it also grows in California in those wetter habitats. This is a lobelia.
Is this Lobelia cardinalis? I completely forgot the name on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It goes completely dormant in the winter, and then you get that in the summer.
And then here we have another wetland species, the wild columbine. And we'll end with a little feature on the grasses, which are wonderful summer plants. And you know what's interesting, Sean and Lee, is I just was out in the Mojave Desert doing a little weekend camping trip a few weeks ago, and this grass, the Bouteloua, and the desert marigold were both just in magnificent bloom, and were just everywhere. And going through fields of this in the eastern Mojave Desert was pretty remarkable. And it's cool to see this as a garden plant back here. There's so many wonderful plants from that eastern Mojave area that are really well adapted. Also with the Felugia that we saw from Chris and Corey, the Apache plume.
Yeah, we've been playing with the species, the blonde ambition variety, and now there's the Pestañas de Angelis, which has a purple bud on it.
And one of our favorite things about the Bouteloua is that at times of the year, if you go out early in the morning, you will find many male bees sleeping on the seed head. And we've had up to 13 of them on 2 crisscrossed seed heads. It's remarkable. And you can pet them. They're asleep.
Wow.
I wonder, is it just like more comfortable than other things?
Well, the female bees are underground and the males they're out
They're
for
out
the
partying.
night.
Doing what males do, just run around town. Wow. Well, what a beautiful garden, and it's been fun to follow it through the whole year of 2021. I think we'll be able to see it again in 2022 in person, right?
Right.
So Lee and Sean, any parting words before we head on to our next garden?
Plant natives. Be okay with dormancy. It's part of the life cycle. Nothing excites me more than the anticipation of pear season and Fuyu persimmons, and then when the ceanothus blooms. And I think we've lost touch with that as a species, as a culture, that there's something to be said about seasons and anticipation. So letting your garden sleep and caring for it, knowing that it's going to come back to life and bring another 6 months of joy, and then little bits of excitement through the dormant season, is a really exciting notion. And I highly encourage letting go. Let go.
And let go and experiment, and know that you learn from your mistakes and you can share that information with other people, but you also might have extraordinary discoveries that you can share with others. So yeah, let go.
Let go.
And on that note, we've got to get in. My husband's got an injured neck, and we've got some pears and Fuyu persimmons to indulge in. And it was so fun being here with all of you. And we'll see you all again soon in person.
Yeah.
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Bye-bye.
We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, we're going to keep on schedule here. We're behind, but we're going to go to the next one, which is different than some of the places we've seen so far. I'm very excited to jump into this next space. I'm going to get it queued up. Erin, you want to?
So we're going to Highland Park, and this is a hyper local plant refuge, and it was inspired by the majestic oak trees that were there when Bruce Schwartz, who is hopping on right now. Hey, Bruce.
Hi.
So good to see you.
You
So
too.
these oak trees were part of what drew you to this site. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. The thing that drew me to the site.
So, Bruce, this garden, I'm so excited about this presentation because you really take the dormancy philosophy to the full.
I consider myself part of the lunatic fringe. Department.
Let me lunatic fringe, or maybe cutting edge is a
Okay, I'll
nice way
take
to
that.
end that. But here we have springtime, this beautiful wildflower meadow. Keep an eye, everyone, on this bird bath in the back, and watch what this becomes. Wow.
Amazing.
So you just cut the water off completely.
Yep. I only water things enough to keep them alive. And of course, any annuals don't get any water because they're not going to live anyway. But when you showed me this photograph, the first one, I couldn't believe it. It's like,
It just feels like a million years ago, right?
yeah, it's like, I can't remember that, looking like that, because I'm so used to it looking like this now. But that's part of what makes it so wonderful, is that it's like you do forget, and then It's like a discovery all over again.
So here we have the oak tree, which you guys are talking about, that really frames and the beautiful home in the back. In the wintertime, here's what it looks like now. Wow, so this is when we talked about the land is breathing. Look at just the expression of change and growth and death, and not death, growth and dormancy that's occurring here, and you're embracing. I think it's really remarkable. And I get, if you're watching this, this is as far as you could take it. And if everybody did this, we would be using basically zero water in the summertime, and it would be a great thing. Zero landscape water. I don't know if everyone's ready quite for this yet, but you're happy with it, Bruce. And you must connect you to the really connect you to the rhythms of the land in a deep way, I would imagine.
I deeply love it, and it's taken me some time though, but I have to say that I'm still feel kind of awkward if I show someone the garden like this at this time of year. They've never seen it before. I've said it, it's like, you realize you start making excuses like, oh, that you should have seen it in April. It was really good. Or it's not dead, it's just dormant. And you feel like the people think maybe that you're crazy, or you're making, you have an imaginary friend.
And so here we have winter exploding into the spring with this lushness, and then there it goes in the summer. And just letting it do its thing. I love it.
Brown is the new green.
Brown is the new green. Although you have deep green of this duckweed. So if we look at the pool here, this is what we're looking at, which is a plant. This is a native plant.
Lemna, right?
Lemna, yep. So it's kind of amazing because that really comes into its own as everything else goes dry. So we have
can also start really seeing the pathways and the beautiful, river rock borders you have there too.
Well, you're absolutely right. That what happens is that your focus changes as things become more visible and less visible. So if you can accept the fact that it doesn't look like something out of Sunset Magazine, or a typical watered garden, this variety is really quite exciting, and it keeps you visually and kind of emotionally, psychologically engaged.
So I totally agree with that. And speaking of being psychologically engaged, I want to talk about these plants we're seeing here, which are the Humboldt lily. And this we kind of got into this sort of heady conceptual idea of this year's 2021 Native Plant Garden Tour, that the Humboldt lily was the right icon for this year, because it's all about the changing of the seasons, the cycles that the land will go through and the gardens can go through. We picked the Humboldt lily because it goes through a very dramatic life cycle, and which we will document right now. So it starts basically as nothing. Just as you can't see it at all. And we didn't catch that, but it would have just looked like some leaves, because there's literally the entire plant is underground. And we catch it maybe a few months after it popped up, Bruce, would that be right at this stage?
Yeah.
And then it's gonna jump from that, grow to this giant plant. And this is a hyper-local native plant, believe it or not. You find this growing right nearby. Then it goes to this. And then those eventually will fall down or be plucked away by the gardener, and to repeat the cycle next year. And the plant is living underground. Zoom in.
I brought some show and tell. There's one of the seed pods that I'm starting to harvest now.
Wow.
You can almost hear it rattle. It's probably 1,000 seeds in this one pod.
That's
and so
cool.
there's like Corey and Chris were talking about how this is an exciting time for wildlife in your garden if you leave the plants to set seed. and then for you to gather them as well to make new plants.
Yeah, and
So
here's
there they are
that,
just starting.
here's that process of the flower gets pollinated. Here's the just pollinated ovary is just developing, starting to develop the seeds. And then it comes to this phase, and then you've got that final phase there, Bruce. Which is just amazing. And a lot of people have trouble growing this plant. It's so showy. We do sell it at Theodore Payne, and Bruce grows it as well. People do propagate it. I think one of the keys probably is that you let it go fully dormant, right? You don't water at all.
No, I never water them. Never.
Yeah, I think that's the way that you could kill them most easily, is rotting them off. So I'm going to just jump way back to some of these images here. And you see this, and I think our eye is trained to think, ooh, that's just some brown sticks. But we want to look at, are those just brown sticks? Or if you really zoomed in and honed in, what could you find there? And that's what this last little series of photos will be about. So this, in that, tangle of brown sticks, you might find this.
That's a caterpillar phacelia. And you can see the little spherical seeds embedded in all those little fibers. And they're quite beautiful, as Marie was able to capture it with the light behind it.
And Bruce, we've gotten a couple of questions. You usually let the wildflowers broadcast their seeds, and then do you cut anything back, or what's your strategy?
I saw there was a few questions about fire, high fire risk, and I do cut the things down eventually in the summer. I do cut them back to the ground, yeah.
And we'll get into the wildland urban interface and fire for the Tujunga garden, which is later this evening.
So we have salvia leucophila, purple sage, its dormant cycle. There we have it, juxtaposed with California buckwheat.
That's purple needle grass, dormant. And it's just beautiful. And what the photograph doesn't capture is the way it moves. And which is so beautiful, really, very poetic.
Yes. And it's this sort of appreciation for a deeper kind of beauty, a different kind of beauty than in your face flowers. It's appreciation for the subtle things and the subtle places. And this one was one that I thought really captured that well. This is not a super common garden plant. It's a very local native shrub, but I think it's gorgeous here in this light. This is the bricklebush, Brickelia californica. And Bruce, really quick, could you just, because if you're seeing all these plants, basically everything we've seen so far would have grown native to where your property actually is. And so if you could just give a really quick rundown, I think people who were here in the spring know, but the philosophy behind this garden really goes beyond just the way that you water it and try to maintain it in terms of the climate, but also the place and what would have been prior to colonization.
Right. Well, very briefly, the overarching idea of the garden is that the plants that I've planted here can be traced back through sources to having grown here at some point in time. They're native to the actual plot of land. So that's kind of the template I use to choose plants. Did it grow here? Would it grow here? That's what I do.
Which is, again, very very disciplined, very at the forefront of what a garden can be, rethinking it as almost the restoration of nature, or the undoing of the last several hundred years of kind of destruction in many parts of the LA basin of the natural environment and just rebuilding it and recultivating it, which is quite amazing.
That's kind of what Sean was saying earlier about kind of letting go, that you don't try to impose your idea of what you want on this piece of land necessarily, but you kind of ask the land, what do you want to have growing here? What feels comfortable to you? And that I imagine that the plants, as they are gathered together in this space, feels like a reunion, family reunion.
Totally. But it's not all dry at the end. You do have a few flowers, including this one, which is our last slide. And I love this shot. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
But it's just important to say that I don't water that. That's the nature of this California fuchsia, is that it does this without summer water. And in fact, sometimes it's not really a choice. Some of those plants, if I watered them during the summer because I didn't like them going brown, they would die because they can't survive the combination of heat and moisture because it's foreign to their ecology. So, but there are these miracle plants, such as this one, which, gives so much and asks so little in return. It's quite amazing.
Gives so much and asks so little in return. I think you give a lot to this garden, because I know, it's not only is it a labor of physical love, but there's a lot of thought and depth in what you're doing. So thank you so much for being part of the tour this year.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I want to give you a chance to just give a quick final thought on summer in the California Native Plant Garden.
Well, I was born in LA, and I remember when every year when it was back to school time, my mother, who was born in New York, would buy me wool clothes, at Orbach's, Wilshire, for the year. And I would be so uncomfortable in those clothes because September is one of the hottest months of the year here. And I realized that she was remembering what her own childhood was like, and she was conforming to this nostalgic idea of what the seasons were, but that really is not reflected here. So I feel like accepting summer dormancy is a way of truly embracing the authenticity of where you are. And where we are right now, this is our climate. This is a Mediterranean climate. It's a dry, hot summer. And the plants that evolved here evolved to be able to withstand that. And I do believe that there's a sense of appreciation that we can bring to it that seems to be lacking. I call it oceanic climate mass nostalgia psychosis.
Can you type that in the chat? Because I love that, and I want to.
Amazing, Bruce.
So
email that to me, Bruce.
Get it? It's like when you stop dyeing your hair. It's awkward for a while, and people say, "Oh, that looks interesting." But showing some in your garden, letting your garden go summer dormant, is a big step. But I think it's very liberating, and I encourage everyone to try it.
Well, thank you for setting the trend, Bruce, and thank you for opening your beautiful garden to us.
Thank you for
We really
being here.
appreciate it. I will stop sharing now. Wow, we are halfway through this amazing gardens. Those of you who are sticking with us, thank you so much. We'll have this all on YouTube archive later, so if you want to come back to it or you didn't catch something, it's going to be there in perpetuity on our YouTube channel. I think we're just going to kind of burn right through since we're sort of behind schedule. Maybe just skip. We're planning to do a short intermission, but I think we'll just keep moving through. That's good, everybody.
Let's do it. Let's make sure our next stop on the tour is Audubon Center at Debs Park. I'm sorry. Historic Filipinotown. I'm so sorry. So I just wanted to make sure that DJ and Dan are here. Yes, they are. Excellent. So we are traveling back again to the heart of downtown LA, and this is a very stylish urban oasis. And we're really excited to talk to DJ Peterson. He's our former board director at Theodore Payne Foundation. And DJ, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be back with everyone. Really, it's great to see so many people have joined the fall tour.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't think we've never done this. We were saying as we were planning this, like, who is like really focused on this time of year when there's, it's sort of an awkward time in the California Native Plant Garden. DJ, what are some of the things that you sort of think about? Maybe this can help frame our conversation as we move through when you're gardening in the summer.
I was listening to all these discussions, and frankly, the thing that I love about summer is I don't have to do anything much. I can just go away. You can do a little trimming here. You can gather some seeds. But I've actually really liked not worrying about things. And, everything is pretty much, or for the most part, has gone to sleep and it's just doing its thing. And I don't have to worry about it. And I don't have to bother it. Like, I don't have to wake these plants up or, it's just like, and so frankly, for me, this is a super busy time for work. So it's nice not to be in the garden all the time or thinking about the garden. So I kind of find it so interesting with the garden tour, you're making me think about the garden a lot right now for this time of year. But it is, to echo some of the earlier thoughts, one of the things about our garden is we don't irrigate, right? So things are definitely dormant right now. Nothing's had any water for 6 months, especially this year. The garden never really perked up a lot. Some plants really didn't perk up this year very much. So they're just still sitting there. And there's nothing I can do about it. So I'll take a break.
Yeah, so we start in the spring with this beautiful flannel bush, and we'll see it change into what, still a very beautiful thing, I think, with the fruits here.
Yeah, it's, I love how this is interesting. It's like the seed pods are just like clinging to the tree. It's like holding on for dear life in a way. And I like that kind of, that's like an echo of the past, right? That the Vermontodendron did really well this year without a lot of rain. And you had those yellow, beautiful flowers, they were covered. And then this is, this is like kind of like an echo. And it reminds me of, in some ways, this is our fall color.
Mm-hmm.
I, like you, Evan, I grew up in New England, in Connecticut, and I was just there. And like you said, there you can, there's a lot of color. Well, the Vermontodendron flower is our fall color in some ways.
It is. And here's a really stark change of the full view of the Vermontodendron in spring and then in summer. I mean,
yep, kind of crispy, kind of dry, kind of Southern California. And by the way, there you see Beverly Boulevard with the cars are flying by and people are speeding, and there's those little trees just kind of sleeping.
Amazing. Here, this pathway really kind of exemplifies what happens to salvias throughout the season. So you have spring, summer,
crispy,
spring, summer.
Yeah, that's poinsettia spreader, and that's a little bit of a hard one because you walk by and it's like, ooh, this is really stringy. It looks stringy, right? And it's just like, okay, it's just going to be there. It's going to look a little bit stringy, but that's the plant. And by the way, if I cut it back too much, it's not going to, be really pretty in the spring. So it's about patience. That's a key word for me, is just patience.
And you've got a nice mix too. If you go back, Evan, you can see the plant in the back is the exact same color. I think that's the flowering pink sumac.
That's
Oh, yeah.
flowering
and
pink
it's
sumac. And that's
evergreen
a
and
great,
beautiful.
yeah, and that's great. That one, and kind of in the nearer you get to see more of the manzanita, the Howard McMinn there. And yes, it's really interesting. Like, like you saw with Bruce's, you just get to see different things at different times. And some plants get to really show off in the summer or hold out or stand out because they still have a lot of foliage and they're very green.
So this is the wildflower kind of walk with ceanothus.
And this was kind of a calm year because, again, we just didn't have any rain, and I irrigated a little bit, but it didn't help.
So yeah, you can imagine what this would look like in a good rainfall year. You see those few California poppies and Clarkias and things, and
yeah,
imagine that.
The poppies were happy this year. The Clarkias really didn't do much.
And here's what it happens in the summertime.
Right.
Plants are gone.
Yeah. And that's one of my summer, that was maybe August or July. I just went through and cut down the annuals. A lot of them had already gone to seed. But I gathered the rest, the poppy seed and the Clarkia seed. And then you get to see the dry stream bed, which is pretty much obscured in the spring.
Yeah, love that, the kind of letting things emerge when the plants go away.
And I kind of like the mulch too. I like looking at mulch.
Yeah, me too.
Leaflet.
So spring, summer. So not everything goes away in summer.
Yeah, this is like the summer fall showstopper, and the giant buckwheat, it's still going. And the great thing about it is it transitions so slowly to that rust color, from white to rust. And so you can just watch the very beautiful, I love this. I walk by this every day to my office. And so you get to see this progression.
There it is, zoomed in.
Yeah, it still looks like that for the most part.
Amazing.
Very architectural. And this is, we were up at, I think, Huntington Garden recently, and there was one of these, and it was just growing wild, and it was just flopping over, and it was so beautiful. So I've decided I'm not going to prune. I was trying to keep this like shaped, but I'm just going to let it kind of like go in all different directions now. More
cool.
natural.
This is a different buckwheat.
Yeah, that Shasta sulfur, this is an interesting one. This is a little bit newer for me, and it's got these pom-poms, which are like these crazy cerulli. I think it's like sulfur colored. Mm-hmm. And now when they're still out there and they look like this, the seed pods, that one's a little like, I wish that was still blooming.
Yeah, maybe not quite as showy as some of the other flowers, but this was a very nice little use of the summer aesthetic. Yeah,
like I said, the giant buckwheat flops over, and then you brush it, and they break off the inflorescences. They just break off really easy. So I just stuck them in a vase. In a little sculpture I have. And in some ways it kind of speeds up the drying. So these are, as you can see, they're just really rust compared to the ones that are still on the tree.
Mm-hmm. Kind of reminds me of that swimming pool shot that we started the show with. Mm-hmm. At Casa Apocalyptica. So here, I love what you've done with your parking lot. And this is the edge of a parking lot. That's what it is. But it's just a really nice choice of plants here, and it works really well in the summertime. This is the middle of summer. So what have you got going on out here?
Yeah, this is obviously a lot of deer grass. And again, this deer grass, I haven't cut it back for a couple of years. So these are like 2 years of growth, and then of course 2 years of brown. And then there's the white sage in the middle. And that's something that I saw from California Botanic Garden years ago, these two growing together. And so that inspired me. And then I was down at Tree of Life Nursery, our friends down at wonderful Tree of Life, and they had all these, the desert marigold, the yellow flowers just popping up all along their driveway and parking lot. And I'm like, oh my God, that's what we're going to do in the parking lot. And the thing I love about this is these are all reseeded. I haven't planted any. So they come back, and I gather the seeds too and sprinkle them around. They love the gravel. They love just really kind of harsh edge. They do better in like really kind of rough conditions. And this makes me smile, you know, whenever you take out the trash or, and I go out to the parking lot. I can't believe I mean, so little water, right? So little rain, and they're just still going.
Amazing. One of the stars of California native plant summer gardening.
Yeah.
Dahlia multiradiata.
Yeah.
There it is again. And another star that we've seen repeatedly is the grapes. And I just love this, mainly for the detail here of just how it spirals itself onto the chain link fence. It's really wonderful. And I think there's just some nice sort of metaphorical stuff happening with this photo based on your garden. We talked about Beverly Boulevard. You know, you're doing this in a really urban space, and you're bringing nature into a pretty urban part of Los Angeles.
Yeah, for sure. And this is actually the first year we're growing grapes, California native grapes. This is the Rogers Red. We also have the Vitis californica. And this one, the Rogers Red, is taking off really fast. I'm amazed at how fast it's growing. And looking at Chris and Corey's, the mature plant, I'm looking forward to having like grapes on this chain link fence, like at the edge of a parking lot. And it's really rough soil right there, really clay, stony. We'll see what happens. That's lemonade berry.
Lemonade berry. Just love the kind of like shine of those fruits.
Yeah. It's fun just to pop a few in your mouth, and they're super tart, super fun. You can see the squirrels and the birds have been eating them. They've been picked off a lot by now, but the berries stay around forever. So that's like, and I see those, and I see them on the ground. It's just like, oh, somebody's eating, little animals, critters are eating them. And that's like year-round food. This is like, well, let's just say fall food for sure.
Totally. I think this is the point, Sal. And you mentioned, it's stringy, and we put this photo in because actually this sort of challenges, again, it's that if you can really slow down and adjust your gaze towards the beauty of this, instead of saying, oh, it's stringy, I want it to be all leafy, this is sort of beautiful in its dormant state right now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and Marie, I think in this photograph, look at the lines in the background. Those are the stems, right? It's a big mound and so it's really architectural. And it's funny because when it starts blooming in the spring, it just turns into this massive green. It's almost too intense. It's like suffocating itself. And so you get to see the structure again at this time of year. You really do get to see the lines. And as you pointed out, Evan, how the leaves are kind of, well, certainly they're very silver. They're not green right now, and they're kind of curled up a bit. And this is just going to take off again.
Yeah, and it's adaptations to the heat and the drought. They're changing color. They're changing their shape.
Lots of spider webs here. They love all those little branches and crisscrosses. And
are you on Team Spider, DJ?
This is a struggle this time of year because we have ants, we have tons of ants, we have tons of spiders. Sometimes like our windows don't close really well. So the spider, when the plant's really close to the house and the cobwebs are all over the house, it's like, okay, maybe we should, a little bit of management. But I was really glad, we just had that rain the other night, and it was I think we had a pretty serious downpour here, and it was so nice to see everything like cleaned up.
Oh, yeah.
Again, this is Beverly Boulevard. There is so much grit here. And it's, it's like, oh, and go to that next picture and it's like, oh, those cherry leaves are shiny again.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's our final photo, the beautiful Prunus ilicifolia holly leaf cherry. DJ, thanks so much for joining us and being part of the tour this year. Any final, and I think also I need to say to everyone, DJ was the board president, and Eric Callow is now our board president. DJ is still on the board, but I want to thank DJ for being wonderful president and president during the beginning of the pandemic. So he and I made it through a lot together, and it was a pretty wild ride for that.
We did, but our common mission of the California natives really carried us along, and
yeah,
great to see everybody here. And I guess my key word going away is patience. This is a time for patience in the garden. Patience in the garden. Well said. And thank you so much, DJ, for sharing your garden and for your wonderful service to the board of directors of Theodore Payne Foundation. Well, it's great to be with everybody, and it's great to share it. And thank you for your interest. Excellent. So we are going to get right into our next garden here. Erin, where are we headed now?
All right, we are headed to Debs Park. So Debs is a huge park, and we're actually going to be zooming in on the Audubon Center at Debs Park. So again, the whole park is 17 acres. Amazing hiking trails, and we're going to be catching up with Marcos Trinidad, who's the center director, and Mika Perron, who is the volunteer engagement coordinator. Then I see Marcos. Hey, Marcos.
What's up, y'all?
Hey, Marcos.
How's it going?
We're doing good.
It's like you.
Hey, Mika.
Right as you introduced me, I shoved a handful of chocolate in my mouth, and I'm like, oh, not of course, this is happening.
We were taking bets on whether you'd be out herding goats this evening or something.
Yeah. I'm glad. The goats are asleep.
If you don't get that joke, go back to night one of the spring garden tour, our Visions of Los Angeles panel discussion. And welcome, Mika. We're so honored to have you guys here. Let's just jump into it. Debs Park, such a iconic, cool part of the city, and you guys have done such amazing things there. So we'll just we're starting with everyone with some transitions, and if you want to just sort of give some thoughts on what we're seeing here, I'll just kind of toggle between big changes.
Yeah, right? No, definitely, and I just like to start with letting folks know that Debs Park, it's a 282 acre park in Northeast Los Angeles. We manage about 17 acres. This is the area that we do manage. And this is Tongva Gabrielino territory. So what we're seeing here is our children's woodland. This is open to the community in a way that really inspires that curiosity. We have this space. The perimeter of this garden is enclosed with a fence, so folks are encouraged to just let their kids roam, let them run around and climb trees and run through bushes and smell all sorts of great smells that a lot of folks were really talking about. So
love that. And you see the transition here. So we're going really lush, really dry, lush, dry. Mika, I think you manage a lot of the volunteer, the work that goes into the landscape, if I remember correctly. And do you guys water? Do you water at all, or what's your?
So we water for the first year to 2 years of the plant's life, and then whatever survives after that survives. Yeah.
Trial by fire.
I think it's one of those. It's one of those things where we'll do whatever we can to get the plant established, and if it can make it through the summers, then it kind of deserves its space, its rightful space. Just as you go through these pictures, you can see this one where there was a lot of water coming through, and then part of the management that we do, it had gone through real quick. Is this like just on a rotation, or is someone?
No, I'm just clicking through it. So tell me to stop. I'm sort of like spacing out and just like clicking through.
Okay, I was just like, is it a rotation, a loop? How's it going? Because there's one section where it's really lush green, right? And it's beautiful, and some of the managing practices is we don't have a lot of mulch in that area because a lot of that will get pushed away. But as it goes into the summer month, or the summer months, we make sure that we apply a fresh bed of mulch. And I guess there was another photo. I don't know, you don't have to go too far to look for it, but
oh yeah, there. There you go.
Yeah, see, so very different in the practice and in just maintaining trails, and a way for folks to really get through. You can see a lot of the sage is going dormant.
You see here the cucumber if you look at the right around this area, and then boom, all of a sudden it's not there anymore as we head into the summertime, and plant that just dries up and goes away, and you just find the cool spiky fruit of it.
Yeah, and this is our Flores Trail. One thing that we also, I think we noticed was up top there was a eucalyptus. It was like the silver dollar eucalyptus, and for us, we have a practice of removing invasives and non-native vegetation, but not just because it's non-native. We look at it more of a transition. So we're not going to remove mature trees that are providing habitat. For these particular trees, we had a Cooper's hawk nesting in this eucalyptus.
Wow.
So if we were just to look at, what's native, what's non-native, let's rip this out, let's rip that out, we're not really doing, I think, nature justice in the terms of understanding how birds and wildlife adapt. And for this section in particular, we started phasing out some of these branches. And if you look on the next one, we go into pruning and really have a succession plan. So when we do remove stuff, we're making sure that it's opening up a space to have native plants move in.
Yeah, I think that's a good lesson for people, because we kind of get gung-ho and we're like, I want all natives, I got to get rid of everything, and sometimes that actually can cause more problems because you're really changing the light conditions. It's expensive to get rid of a full tree, and the trees take a long time to grow too. So, and
just cover, shade, all that stuff. Trees like the fast growing trees, they provide a lot of shade. They use a lot more water. They use a lot more resources. But looking at if it's the only thing in the area, I suggest looking at a succession plan on how you're going to replace it and make sure that there is habitat there. Maybe Mika could talk about what we're looking at now.
Yeah, so this is our beautiful courtyard. If anyone has not been to the Audubon Center before, this is kind of our main entry area, and we are typically open to the public, but I do need to make a quick disclaimer that we are currently closed for some building maintenance, which is unfortunate, but we're hoping to reopen within the next few weeks here, at which point any of you would be welcome to come and visit and enjoy this space. It's a beautiful place to just kind of enjoy and just take in the beauty that Debs Park has to offer. As you can see, we have some ponds and sycamores, and you can see the grapes in the background there as well.
And you have a lot of these trees, which I'll build the suspense here. So this is a little unusual looking, right? What got black stems and green growth in the middle? What are we looking at?
So it is, a really interesting site in terms of the type of habitat that here. This is California black walnut. And for years, we had a lot of community members coming out and really sharing concern on all the dead trees that were in the park. And I do admit it looked dry, like all of this. Like you could see they're a bit scraggly. I think we were talking about this, and it kind of reminds me of Sleepy Hollow, kind of going through there, really eerie vibes going through there. But what we noticed over time is that these trees weren't completely dead. A lot of the branches had died back. And then I believe it was in 2019, we got a significant amount of water. And as soon as we got that water, a lot of the green vegetation that you see here started to sprout, and you can look into these trees. It's coming from the base. So what we're starting to see is a lot of the wildlife using this space in a very interesting way, because we have tons of corvids that hang out in these trees. A lot of our raptors, specifically red tail and Cooper's hawk. And then we have some resident great horned owls that actually live on the other side of this hill. But if you go right as the sun starts going down, or early morning, you can see the great horn on some of these snags. Wow. Which for us really is amazing, because these trees were not dead. They were doing exactly what they are designed to do in the sense of when there's drought, they dig deeper and die back. They cut their loss. And now they're growing back. And it's actually really, really cool to see the new growth and the shape that's taking over this space, because we will not go in there to prune that back. Any of the dead branches that are over the trails, or at least 10 feet from the trails, we do manage or have the city manage. But anything on the slope, it's going to stay there. So we do have to talk to the community and let them know about fire danger. Those branches catching on fire is not like, that's not going to cause the fire. If those branches catch on fire, it's because there's a much larger fire in the park, because those branches don't catch easily. So yeah, it's just a process of awareness and education, and then letting folks know what they're really looking at when it comes to California native plant.
And I think this is a question for the home gardener as well. We're talking team spider. How about team deadwood? Who's on team leave your deadwood or versus team prune it? Because my background is in ornamental horticulture, and the first thing we were taught, any dead wood, that's the first thing you get rid of. When you want to prune, make it beautiful, you got to get rid of that.
I'm on team leave it alone.
Marco's on team leave it alone.
I'm on,
and spider webs too. Ornamental horticulture, get rid of spider webs. So
no, I'm all for letting the nature, like, again, this is a park. I do understand the concern and just the horticulture practice, especially like deadheading. A lot of folks go into gardens, or if you show up at the Huntington or Descanso and you see a bunch of dead plants, you're like, wait a minute, I just paid $8 to get in here.
Try 28.
Like, what's going on? And for us, folks come in and they see the first thing they see is a pile of rocks and a big mountain of mulch. So we look at all of this as habitat. We had an event not too long ago that ran into the night, and as folks were walking out, on our mulch pile was a huge tarantula. And these were folks that were saying like, whoa, like I've never like seen this out in the wild. And I was pretty shocked, just that it was out saying hello to everyone. And it wasn't that late. It was about 8 o'clock. But it was such an experience. And I'm not saying that because of the mulch pile, or the mountain of mulch, I should say, it came out. But I like to think that because of some of the decisions we make in terms of management, we're able to encourage a lot more wildlife.
That's
like
so
this guy on the
cool.
buckwheat, right?
Speaking of which, this buckwheat, and I would definitely not know this off the top of my head, but Marcos, you texted me that when we sent this photo, 4 speckled hoverfly, which
right?
you just caught beautifully. We'll move through some of these photos kind of quick because we're getting a little late here, but we've been seeing grapes, throughout the presentations tonight. I just thought that we captured this one at a really nice time, or Marie captured this.
Right?
Great. Yeah. So this view, Mika, we're looking through this and we see something at the end of the view. What is that out there at the end?
Yeah, so this is looking into our children's woodland area, and we have kind of a demonstration of the Arroyo Seco, and we have a Tungva key, which is the traditional Tungva dwelling here. And this picture is perfect because it actually hides the fact that it's currently missing its roof. So we're in the process of kind of redoing it. And interestingly, traditionally the dwelling was constructed with like tule and cattails and really water-loving plants. However, I think as many of us are aware, those plants have become increasingly sparse and difficult to source. And so what we're actually doing now is we're working with some local Indigenous community members and students to rethatch our key with palm fronds. So a quick plug, if anyone has any palms that they're going to be trimming anytime soon, we are actually looking for some more palm fronds to finish up the key there. And it's just kind of, we're using it as kind of an educational tool to just really shed light on, in terms of honoring Indigenous wisdom. It's not always about using exactly what was used, hundreds of years ago. It's more about honoring that sense of resourcefulness and, using what we have access to. So that's kind of, what we're the narrative we're putting forth within this space here. And then, obviously just the beauty of these grapes and the shade they kind of provide. And this is another good one that kind of, you can't tell that the roof is missing a little bit.
that sense of
Gorgeous
resiliency.
Yeah, that is really, really cool.
The other thing that we do, just with taking that into consideration, just with plant material, every year we generally have a holiday event, and what we do it started off as native plant wreaths, but what we end up getting into is just using all plant material. Most of the plant material are native plants because that's what we plant, but we do have some eucalyptus and some pepper trees on site that we started using the material, and a lot of the vine we use as binding to make sure these wreaths are put together. And it's just this idea of finding purpose for native plants outside of the traditional uses, and just bringing them into your home and using them over again. So we try to encourage.
We'll shout out to Theodore Payne Foundation, Jenny, and everyone else who was working on it, Kelsey, a whole bunch of folks. I think Katie was part of it. We won the California Native Plant Society Native Plant Wreath Contest Best in Show last year. We competed against like 20 other native plant organizations.
Oh,
we took home the crown, so we're pretty proud of that.
Send us the next competition. We'll have to join.
Yeah, you
sure.
guys gotta join.
Yeah, CMPS runs it. It's really fun. I think this is the only cattail we saw. It's beautiful. Free monodendron, again, we saw DJs.
Yeah. One thing that we were talking about, I think even when we were seeing this, just the beautiful shapes. Like if you look into the seed pod itself, what we have a number of volunteers that come out to help us with managing the landscape and working in our native plant nursery. We have a lot of artists that come out as well, and they started harvesting some of this vegetation to use in their art. This is like a little paint stamp that was using or using a lot of it as a paintbrush, which I thought was really cool and really creative.
Love that. Lemonade berry, beautiful California rose here, all images from Debs Park. Milkweeds, summer, so some plants grow in the summer. I want to throw that in there. Moving quick because we're getting towards the end of our time here. This is buckwheat, beautiful capture between that flower and rust phase. So it looks like you guys are our team spiderwebs. I see that little thread of a spider web
Right.
going across the top. And the curled up salvia leaf there.
Yeah, and this is that
Oh, sorry.
just that idea of really getting, you could keep going, of really loving the crust of the bread as well. And that's what we really teach is the different stages, and then also understanding if we did practice deadheading or some of these other horticulture practices, we're basically eliminating stages of the plant's life. So after the pollinators are out for the nectar, a really important piece is making sure that the plant does go to seed and birds go for these seeds and make sure that they're helping propagate the plant. So if we were to just look at this and be like, well, it's dead, let's get rid of it and prune it back, which I have done in the past in a, at my parents' garden or other places. But here, now that I'm in a position to actually make the decisions, it is so much more, I think, fulfilling for the habitat to have it go through its natural cycle.
Couldn't agree more with that. And here it's black sage. So I don't think we've seen a good black sage, and this is where it's really kind of gone fully dormant here. All right, Los Nogales Nursery. This is the big reveal.
It is.
We got a little announcement. I think we're break some news tonight for anyone who's watching.
Yeah, drum roll. Or I was at least hoping to hear the little theme song. I didn't realize how much I missed it.
Yeah. So, do you want to announce, Marcos? What?
Go for it, man.
Well,
do it.
We are super honored at Theodore Payne Foundation to be entering a partnership with Audubon Center at Debs Park to help operate this nursery. And we just signed the MOU, so we are super pumped. It's just going to be a great collaboration. We view it as basically building on the amazing work that's already been happening there, really taking the same themes of local plants, walnuts, Los Nogales walnuts, oaks, all the white sage, California buckwheat, all the just classic local plants that we need to produce way more of because there's just not nearly enough of them out there, and working together to hopefully scale up, bring some of our operational support to just make it make more plants, to get more native plants out into the city. That's the goal. Definitely.
And one thing that we really focus on at Los Nogales is site-specific planting. So wherever we were planting, that's where we would collect seed from. So we support a lot of habitat enhancement that is happening along the LA River, the Elysian Valley Park, El Rio State Park, Historical State Park, and also in the future the bow tie parcel. So what we're looking at is continuing that process of being able to take these projects on in a very intentional way, to collect from the site, from plants that historically not would just be found there, but are actually there now, and then be able to grow and continue that. And we as Audubon are just really excited to take this partnership on with Theodore Payne.
Yeah, well, it's an honor, and everybody, watching right now, stay tuned for cool stuff. I think, the goal is to just grow a lot of plants and get them out there into the world, but I'm sure Marcos and I will cook up, and Mika and Aaron and the whole team will cook up some ideas for collaborating in other ways and getting the public engaged and doing all kinds of fun stuff. So stay tuned. We hope to start getting going with this really soon. So yeah, really excited. And I think, if anyone was kind of followed the native plant industry last year, we basically ran out of plants, and you couldn't get certain plants. So we're really going to focus on filling the gaps, things that we think are most important for producing habitat and restoring nature within the city. So it's going to be a great collaboration. Super excited. And it's been an honor to work with you guys on this garden tour. We really appreciate it. Any final kind of closing thoughts about summer in the native plant garden before we move on to our next garden?
Just again, really enjoying the different stages of your garden, of your plant. I again, like I teach my kids here, they have to eat the crust of the bread. If you're gonna plant natives, you're gonna fall in love with the smell, with the flowers, all that stuff. But what I really fell in love with is the process of the dormancy stage and then coming back to life. It's like that breath of fresh air. And when you're able to incorporate that into your garden and into your life, really, it brings such a refreshing view of what this space can really look like and what we can be doing to add some resiliency into our communities. Thanks, everyone.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcos. Thank you, Mika. All right. So we've got 2 more gardens, and we have a really cool sneak peek of 2022 garden tour. So I hope everyone, if you've made it this far and you can hang out, stay with us, because we also have our final garden, the Gottlieb Native Garden, with some stunning photos of wildlife and just some really amazing stuff. And then before we get into our finale, which will be the art, showing off the artwork for 2022 garden tour. But before that, we have a garden that has a very important theme that we want to explore, and it really is a theme that's important in the summertime, and that is fire. And it's something that we're very interested in here at Theodore Payne. I'm trying to grab it, but my computer's propped up with it. We actually produced a booklet. Maybe we can share the links in the chat about the urban-wild interface and fire management. So Aaron, do you want to introduce our garden here as I queue up?
Yeah. So now we are headed to Tujunga. So this is a beautiful small garden that is really situated right at the edge of that urban wildland interface. And so that's a space where human communities meet wild landscapes. And it's obviously an incredible place, beautiful place to be, but it's also very, very high fire risk. And so we are going to be meeting with Teresa Mackey, this is her garden, as well as the designers from Form LA, and also with JT, who helps maintain this garden. So welcome Eric Crow, JT, and Teresa. Hi, guys.
Hi, how you doing?
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry we're a little bit behind schedule, but
No worries.
There's a lot to talk about in summer gardening, it turns out. So here we are in spring, and Teresa, I wonder if you could just quickly frame where we are, because that's really important in the story of this garden.
Right, Tujunga sits a little bit above Glendale. We're probably about 10 minutes away from Angeles Crest, if you're familiar with that. To one side of us are the Verdugo Mountains, which is where the Latuna fire was about 2 or 3 years ago. And I think Theodore Payne sits at the bottom of the Latuna Canyon. I'm at the very top of the Latuna Canyon. And then on the other side is I think it's the end of San Gabriel Mountains, where the station fire was about 10 years ago. And there was another big fire in Tujunga Sunland about 3 or 4 years ago. So I sit right in between those two mountain ranges. In the little valley area. So it's kind of up towards the woodsy area.
Towards the woodsy area where fire is a concern, right? So you had to kind of design with that in mind.
Well, Latuna was about a mile from my house. And it was pretty close to you guys at the foundation when Latuna burned and everything. So this is winter where the most of everything stays green except for my redbud, which is probably the only tree on my property, or the only plant on my property that does do like the East Coast change of life, where we go dormant, no flowers. Then you got a little redbud blooming in the spring that the birds really like, and you can eat the flowers. And then come summertime, it's got full green leaves on it, which it has right now. And I think probably sometime in November, JT and Eric will know more. I think the leaves kind of turn a little reddish and then they fall off. And it's the only tree on my property that actually drops its leaves. All the other trees stay with their leaves. So there's not a lot of maintenance with tree foliage that has to be picked up.
And so here we are now in spring, ending on summer. I wonder, Eric or JT, any thoughts, just what we're seeing as we cycle through the seasons of the front yard here?
Yeah, Evan, we actually, when we designed this, we kept in mind of using plants, and of course, in the design thought of using the form, texture, and colors throughout all the seasons. So as you look at all these, our goal is to kind of have a garden that can handle all the seasons, especially the drought, as you see, as we get to that. So you can kind of follow that as we go through.
Neat. And we loved in the front yard, just capturing I know wildlife is a big theme of this garden. So Marie captured this beautiful photo of how the redbud changes. Teresa, thanks for describing that. I'll add one little kind of fun factoid about redbuds. Those flowers are delicious. If you're eating them, they taste like a pea almost. So great reason, other than just the beauty of the spring bloom of the redbud, is they're edible. And if you want to impress your friends, put some on a salad. It'll make it seem really classy and Epicurean. So here we have it in the springtime.
You can win the Instagram fight.
Yeah, exactly.
That's also, this is hopefully a bird. I bought those little bird houses, and then I found out that you should have them up for a year before the birds can find them. They just don't automatically just find some place to nest, that they kind of scope it out. So I'm hoping this spring somebody will find a home.
And so just like at State Historic Park, we were able to document changes outside of the garden. There was a big change that occurred during the time that we filmed in your garden. And here we have, here you'll see it very well. I'm going to switch over.
Yes, we decided to add a piece of art to my garden, kind of an entryway into the garden. And one was also to have the butterflies kind of lead the way into the space, kind of like trail off. So you they kind of say something about the magic of what when I walk in there that I'm going to see. And so, yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. A big, white, empty, ugly garage door.
That's beautiful.
So JT or Eric or Teresa, whoever thinks that, I know there's an important element here that you can see, which is kind of not the plants, but actually what we're looking at right here from a fire perspective.
Right. So Evan, what we did is when we designed this garden, we were very conscious about defending against fire. And with that, of course, we have a defensive space. And throughout the garden, you might notice, it is a maintained garden. I totally agree with Marcos to let things go to seed, and benefits the wildlife, and Teresa really enjoys that. But it was important that we kept the garden maintained to keep all, flammable leaf litter and stuff like that. But also in the design, we also just created as much of a defensible space with lush natives as we could. And this is an irrigated garden.
Yeah, and that's an important thing is sometimes, in a place where it's there's a higher fire risk, you actually might want to use a little more irrigation to kind of buffer and keep the plants more hydrated.
Yeah.
I think Erica or somebody mentioned that the white sage has oil, so if they dry out too much, that would become a fire danger if they get too dry because of the oil. Also on the bird, I don't know if you saw the bird hanger there. I had a Cooper hawk about a month ago land on that.
Oh my gosh.
That was pretty, that was pretty exciting.
Wow. That's very cool.
Luckily, Sarah's a little too big to be picked up, so.
Oh, we haven't introduced Sarah yet. She needs her own box.
Her own Zoom box.
Sarah is Teresa's dog. This garden was also designed with her in mind too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coffee berry, we haven't seen a lot of this one. Just want to point out the fruits. And then you guys remember the silver carpet we saw back in West Hollywood. JT, we talked the other day about how you guys kind of let this get through the season, then prep it for its next year of growth. So here it is in flower, and here it is sort of in its full form. How would what's going to happen after this phase, and what are you going to do to get it to come back nice and vibrantly the next season?
This is one that does go dormant right now, and it does dry out a good bit. Obviously, deadhead it and everything. For this, what we do is with our normal fall trimming and pruning and everything, we do give it a good little haircut. I see a lot of times it acts, it has like a thatch layer. It will continue to grow kind of vertically. And so we do kind of try to get that out of there. So there's more, it's kind of fresher and a little bit more green and doesn't kind of, continue to go up and up.
Yeah, so I wonder if you have any just sort of rules of thumb for people as they're getting towards the end of summer, maybe this time of year, there's signs of rain. We had some rain the other day. What are you guys starting to get it more into cutting stuff back and heavier pruning now, or what's on your mind at this time of year?
Yeah, we are gearing up for it. As it cools down, that is when we trim most of our natives. And so like for Lysandria, I would, on a footprint basis, it does spread quite a bit. So you can cut, like this is along a driveway. We could cut almost a foot of it off along all the edges. And then on the top, it's just maybe 3 to 4 inches. We're just kind of giving it a nice little haircut. Hand trimming it, we would trim it away from the agave there. And because it will put on a lot of new growth in the spring.
And Eric, you mentioned designing for the seasons, and so I think this is a great choice for that kind of succession of blooms.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I can refer back to Teresa because she sees it on a daily basis, but just creating a garden that brings colors like this apricot mallow out, and there's some red buckwheat, and of course the white sages and other sages. So really just to bring that element to the garden is just an extra special thing we can do for Teresa.
It sets off nicely against some of the greens and grays and stuff.
And you get the blues of this salvias here. And then of course we've seen this time and time again, but it's such a sight of the Southern California dormant season, the seed heads of the salvias. And so, being in a higher fire zone, I think you guys mentioned you try to keep a little bit less kind of dead material or dormant material on the plants, but it seems like you can still leave a bit. and so you're just timing that to keep fire safety in mind.
Yeah, we you know, Teresa, like Teresa said, she loves the wildlife of part of it. So we do always try to leave white sage, the Cleveland sage, any kind of thing that will have the seed heads for birds and other animals. We always try to leave that as long as possible. We do cut it off a little bit sooner than maybe some of our areas that don't have that fire risk. As you can see in like that, one of those photos of like, normally you would still see the spikes on the white sage dried out, and we do cut them, like we cut them maybe a month ago at Teresa's property. So we do cut it a little bit sooner just to, as they really dry out, just to kind of minimize that risk.
That makes sense. And yeah, here you see the white sage. And again, it looks a little different because this is getting a little more irrigation than some of the other gardens. So it's a little plumper. And a lot of these plants, you know, if you are irrigating in the summer a bit, you can keep them fresher. And I say fresher, but you can keep them greener. So there's a continuum of how dry do you want to go. We saw Bruce's garden that goes bone dry. And then we're seeing some other gardens where they're irrigating, particularly this one, to keep it more hydrated to protect from fire. The meadow here, I think, is just one of the greatest features, and I know this was designed with more than humans in mind. So I wonder if you guys could kind of just walk us through how you maintain, you know, what was the idea behind the meadow? How do you maintain it? And just talk about maybe about the choice of red buckwheat. We've seen a lot of that as a great foundational plant to kind of mark the entryway to this garden space.
Yeah, I mean, I can start off and then let JT finish up with the maintenance. But, you know, as far as the meadow, it's creating a green area for both to walk on. As you can see, we used it between the joints of the broken concrete, and also to let it kind of grow and be cut throughout the seasons to create that soft look. And it's something that Sarah, her pet dog, really loves too. So you know, we're thinking about all aspects of this, not just the visual. And then of course the red buckwheat, it just has such a great feature of like the silver underneath the leaves, the red blooms that come out, and then they kind of turn to a pale pink, and then, you know, then as they come to a dry look, and it's kind of like Marcus was saying, it's kind of the crust again. I really like that statement he made. But it really is a appreciation of the whole life through the start to the end of the season with the plant. So JT can talk a little bit about the maintenance.
Yeah, so on the Carex meadows, you know, we do let it grow long, as you can kind of see in the background. And, you know, for Teresa, since we have that walkway, we do mow that more regularly, just obviously so that is a, you know, safer pathway. On the Carex, we usually mow it about 3 times a year. Nothing during the kind of the heat of the summer. We'll actually mow it pretty soon in the fall. Once again, some, you know, kind of in the winter, early spring, and then again in the late spring before the heat gets really intense. This is one that, you know, you don't really want to cut it in the heat of the summer because it doesn't do a lot of growing in the summer either. It does kind of stall out. That's why we cut it right, you know, at the end of spring. It has another good push of growth and then kind of slowly grows throughout the summer. And so that you can kind of have a picture like this of it's maybe 12 inches high and ready for another cut in the fall.
Yep. And this is in August, I think, here. So
and this is Carex Panza we're looking at.
Yep.
Oh, lush.
We had to throw in just the summer squash because of summer gardening, and vegetable gardening and native plant gardening go really well together as long as you separate out the watering and figure that out. But we always say that you know, if you're lucky enough to have a garden, what 2 better things to do than to grow your own food and grow food for the birds and butterflies that live around you.
That's it.
And
Oh, that's
yeah,
beautiful.
got that wonderful little shot on the red buckwheat. And that brings us to the end. So on this beautiful image here, you Eric, JT, and Teresa, I wonder if you could just wrap up kind of any thoughts on dormancy or the summer. How do you think about native plant gardening in the summertime?
Go ahead, Teresa.
Well, I'm kind of new to all that. I mean, I guess with the summer is the buckwheat to me is probably the both of words, because it can have those nice puffy pink ones and then has the rust at the same time. So sometimes you have both going on at exactly the same time. And then I'm lucky enough that Erica and Cassie and JT, who mains it, when they planned the garden, they gave me flowers that would bloom throughout the year. So I have the daisies that come in the summertime. Since when I started, I was not a native plant enthusiast. So they gave me flowers that would bloom all the time, which like homeowners like to see and stuff. So I guess that's kind of my parting words, but it's kind of late, so I'm kind of tired. I'm a night person. You should have called me at 7 o'clock this morning, but
Yeah, I mean, looking at all the seasons, as far as from a design point of view, I think each season is equally important and deserves equal thought. And so that's what we try to do. And I guess hopefully through the pictures, you can kind of see that come out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's important to have the natives because that's where we see our seasons in LA. If you want to have seasons in Los Angeles, plant natives and you will see it. That's the best.
Well said, JT. Love that. From LA, Teresa, thank you guys so much.
For sure, thank you.
Really appreciate you being with us this year.
Thank you.
I see Cassie on my Zoom screen, but hi, Cassie. she's there, but I don't see her picture. So, all right. Well, many thanks, guys. We have made it to our final garden, and we have kind of the showstopper. This is one of the most impressive California native plant gardens in Los Angeles that I know of. And we will jump right into it. So, Erin, where are we headed for our final tour of the evening?
All right. So we are headed to Beverly Hills, and this was a garden started back in 1990 by Susan Gottlieb. Susan, we're so happy to have you here today. And with Susan is Scott Logan, who is the naturalist at this garden. And he's going to be able to talk to us about the wildlife here. But this is a 1 acre garden. Susan, you've been, working on both the front and then the back with this incredible water feature and a steep hillside. And look at this view. This is the spring view here.
That was, that's not nearly as clear as it was when nobody was driving in the pandemic. I really got to appreciate that view when nobody was going to work. But but we're back to normal, more or less.
Back to traffic, back to smog.
Yeah.
But the plants and the birds of the garden keep doing their thing. So we go from spring to summer. And I'm going to just toggle that back so everyone can kind of take, let their eyes adjust here. We have.
And the funny thing is, it rained that day.
Spring, summer. Yeah. So this.
we debated whether or not we should maybe come back on a dry day, but decided that the vagaries of weather should be honored. And
yes. And I think it's we actually got some really unusual shots. We got, rust colored buckwheats that are soaking wet that you just wouldn't associate with summertime. And you see the water actually on the path right here. That was rainwater in August.
That's our buckwheat. I love the way it drapes over the wall like that. And then in the summertime, it's so interesting. I love the way the cobwebs are on it.
Yeah. Oh, Susan, your team cobweb, your team spider.
Spider webs.
I think everybody has been pro spider, and we actually captured. So you see what she was just talking about, the beautiful droplets of water on the spider web. We'll see more of that in a little bit. But speaking of buckwheats, look at this shot. Look at this transition.
And this Gambelia in there as well.
So Scott, in terms of pollinators, they're seeing this huge wall of buckwheat. What are they thinking as they arrive at this massive plant here?
Well, certainly in the garden, I'm going to assume throughout Southern California, this summer is the high time for pollinators, especially bees, when it comes to both diversity of species and mass. So yeah, Susan's garden is full of pollinating bees and flies during the summer. You can see why. You can see the difference. It's not to say that we don't have pollinators during the spring, but summer is definitely the big push for pollinators.
Can you do that transition one more time, Evan? It's just astonishing.
Yeah,
Also,
there's
just check this out. I love the handrail here. It's so cool.
Oh yeah.
And we've found that the Gambulia is a good hillside plant because it gets big and it covers a lot of territory, and it blooms for quite a long time, not profusely, but I've actually used quite a bit of it.
Very nice plant.
Yeah, that's a beautiful picture.
Yep, there's more team spider there.
Yeah, this is for all those team spider heads out there. This might be our background image. It's got this amazing like bubble here, and I wonder what that spider was thinking when it just started pouring rain on its web. Was it like, oh God, like I just built this thing, like come on.
Yeah, it's supposed to be summer.
There it is.
There he is.
Yeah, so that's a grass spider, and it's a grass spider web. They're the ones who make those wide open funnel webs, so that drape over grass and bushes.
Awesome. And so yeah, the interaction between plants and animals is such a huge theme of the garden. I think this really is probably the most iconic relationship between an insect and a plant. What are we seeing here, guys? For those, I'm sure everyone knows, but just in case they don't.
Everybody doesn't know. Well, we got some milkweed there, and we have a monarch caterpillar looking almost like it's going to pupate any moment, munching down to the bottom of that plant probably.
And again, people think about monarch butterflies in the spring, and there's always comments about, well, there's not too many monarchs in my garden, this year. But it's the summers and early fall is when the monarchs are really everywhere, and the garden is full of them right now and full of larvae still.
Awesome. And then we have a sequence of photos that you took, Scott. Most of the photos we've had are almost everything is from Marie, but these are from you, documenting just some of the different diversity that you've found. And so I wonder if we could just go through these real quick. And
so that's a masked bee. Again, they're during the summer, it's a very small bee, and they love the buckwheat, especially when it gets in this sort of flowering stage. That's a furrow bee. It's actually a metallic furrow bee, so it's a really sort of different looking one. Again, a summer bee. And that would be a small carpenter bee. It's called a small carpenter bee. People think of carpenter bees, there's really large black bees that buzz around the garden, and the females are black, the males are brown. They call them teddy bears. But the smallest bees that we have here in Southern California are also carpenter bees, and this is one of them.
I love the colors you captured on those wings there.
Yeah, let me go through these one more time real quick, just because they're so cool. I haven't really had a chance to sit and look at these closely.
Now, what's interesting about masked bees are the bee that was right before there is that you won't see any pollen on it because they actually store the pollen in their mouths. So they collect the pollen in their mouths and carry it back to their brood chamber. But if you go to the next two, you'll see that they actually do collect pollen. You can see pollen on its legs there. And
oh yeah, that one's look at him. He's all
yep.
Wow. There you see all the pollen stuck to him. Amazing.
And just a real quick, I want to make a quick note now that we're on bees, is that you mentioned in the garden right before how great it is to have a food garden and a native garden together. It's really important too, because when it comes to squashes and even tomatoes, European honeybees don't pollinate those crops. They can't. It's our native bees that do it. So there was a squash on that one plant that was hanging over the rail there in that picture. That means there was a native squash bee that came and pollinated that flower. It was not a European honeybee.
That's a great point.
And we have more than 1,600 native bees here in California, and so
Correct. And in Los Angeles County, there's over 550 species, as opposed to the one species of European honeybee.
And what an argument there for people who haven't made the connection that biodiversity is important and something we really need to conserve just for its own sake, which is my feeling about it. But if we don't conserve this biodiversity, we actually put ourselves at risk because much of our food crop depends on pollinators, and not just the European honeybee.
That's right.
So there's an imperative, not only for the survival of all the other species, but for our own survival, to really think about protecting the ecology of the earth.
Yeah, I think it's really important that when people think about saving the bees, is that we should be saving our native bees and not be so concerned with an alien bee, which the European honeybee is an alien bee. It's really causes more headaches to our native animals than any benefit that it brings us. So I would say plant native and support our native bees.
And Scott, you've documented more than 400 different wildlife species in this garden. Is that number correct?
We're over 600 species now.
Over 600. Wow.
Yes, that would be from an ant up to a mountain lion that's visited here occasionally.
Everybody should go back to the spring footage. It was the grand finale of our spring video footage, and it includes a lot of the game trap camera footage that Scott and Susan and the team have documented. Amazing stuff. We started with the monarchs. I just wanted to throw the milkweed, which is the host plant of the monarch. And the reason I just wanted to talk about this really briefly, I don't think we've mentioned this yet, that there are certain native plants which actually grow most actively in the summertime. And you want to plant those in the spring rather than the vast majority, which you're going to plant in the fall, and they grow through the winter and kind of stop growing in the summer. There's a subset of native plants which do grow in the summertime. And milkweed is probably the most, the one that we sell the most of and people grow the most in their gardens, like this narrow-leaf milkweed here. So just to know there's some nuance in that idea that native plants, you plant them in the fall. That's true for most things, but not everything. And one of the biggest exceptions is this is the native milkweed. So we wanted to just put this picture up of toyon because we love toyon. We think of it almost as a holiday kind of plant. It's those beautiful red berries, but it's a really pretty summer plant too, I think, when it has the green unripe fruits.
Yeah, that's really an interesting comment because people don't know, they're not really that noticeable. You go sort of from the white flowers to the red berries, and there is that in-between stage that's quite beautiful.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah. Actually, you know, we've kind of gotten into using natives in our flower arrangements when we have dinner parties and things. And this is we've got a lot of this. And so we use a lot of it. And actually, they're very simple arrangements, but they're very beautiful. I've really gotten into that summer look.
Absolutely. And we've talked a little bit about how fruits are such a summer. This photo really makes me think of like the New England forest for some reason in the winter time, particularly because it's wet. And this wouldn't normally be wet at this time of year. We came on a weird day when it was raining, but this ribes currant, it's a little bit of a foreboding, kind of daunting plant with these thick spines. But look at just the beauty of those fruits with the glands and the kind of the shimmer of the rain. Susan, how do you, I mean, obviously these go fully dormant. Do you do any kind of, they go fully dormant in the summertime. Do you do any sort of pruning or maintenance, or do you just sort of let them go and?
We've just been leaving them.
Just leave them.
And trying to avoid them.
Don't put them right on the path, huh?
We don't plant them near sidewalks and staircases much.
And this is the fuchsia flowered gooseberry.
Yeah, it is. Actually, there was one that was already growing here down on the lower part of the hill. There were a few things that were native that were growing on the lower part of the hill. We had some greenbark ceanothus. There were a few black walnuts, but no oaks, and nothing much else other than weedy grasses and things, but and ivy, of course. But there were a couple of things, and this was one of the things that was on the property already.
Oh.
So we've seen the Dudleya cycle. We just wanted to show the summer Dudleya. Again, the kind of curling leaves that look like they're drying out. That's part of the thing they do. And I find it beautiful. You can see it more on this one, but we saw at Casa Apocalyptica at the beginning of the evening, how they just kind of, over the season, they'll become plump and lush, and they'll contract into a little.
Yeah, they're so incredible the rest of the year. But in the summertime, they kind of withdraw.
They withdraw. They're bracing themselves for the heat and the drought.
That's right. And I find that so wonderful about so many of these plants is their different strategies to surviving the drought period while they wait for rain the following season.
Well, that's sort of why native plants are so interesting, or the California native plants anyway. I'm sure that's true all, but just the strategies of getting through the rough stages. And that's
6 months without rain is a long time.
Yep.
Yeah, and then there's others that stay evergreen, like this hollyleaf cherry, which has its adaptation is to have very stiff, feathery leaves, which they call sclerophilus, meaning leather leaf, basically adapted to basically just being in the blazing sun all year, and then at the end of the year putting out these beautiful fruits in the summertime.
Caliandra.
This is the Caliandra. I saw this for the first time in nature this summer down in Baja, California. It wasn't blooming, but beautiful desert plant.
They're really looking beautiful right now. That front part of the garden is full of this stuff. I mean, I think I put one plant in, and now I've got bazillions of them, and I've had to pull many of them out. But they're really looking quite pretty right now.
That's the Stakes there.
And what is the other one that's non-native?
Alyssum.
Alyssum, yeah. I've seen a lot of this on the first.
This is a star.
This is one of the other stars. Yeah, we've really learned what works for people. So Bellia multiradiata, the desert marigold, and this Corythrogene phylogenifolia.
Yeah, I'm determined to get more marigold in the garden now because I love what they look like in among the grasses.
Oh yeah, I mean, with DJ with the white sage too, the way the DJ had done it, so cool.
Great combo.
And another one that was a kind of an early hit at Casa Apocalyptica is the Felugia paradoxa.
Yeah, it's a great plant. And on a hillside, it's really good.
And then the one that, I think this is our last. Oh no, we have a bit more afterwards. But this one, it grows like in Bruce's garden, Bruce Schwartz's garden. We saw this as dry can be, still blooming. California fuchsia, and this is an important plant for pollinators. Am I right about that, Scott?
Absolutely, it's an important plant for hummingbirds. What would be our only native hummingbird that would be here this time of year would be Anna's hummingbirds, and they're always all over this. And this is what's supporting them until manzanita come into bloom.
Wow.
They really do. The hummingbirds use this so much.
Yeah. This is really easy to maintain. You can coppice it, cut it down to the ground, and it'll regenerate every year. Super low water. It's blooming. It's head off right now in mid-October here at the European Foundation. There are many different varieties of it, different selections.
They almost glow. I feel like also at sunset, they just glow in the dark.
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit about your summer kind of arrangements, Susan. Could you kind of talk us through some of the plants we're seeing in these beautiful arrangements here?
Can I tell you what's in these? Oh, yeah. Well, there's the white sage and there's columbine and there's buckwheat and the cherries and I think those are Toyon.
Yep.
The
green
green
Toyon.
cherries.
Toyon.
Yeah.
And this is part of a new book that you
Yes,
just
it is.
published, Susan.
Yes, we just have to give it a little plug. Well, we did it in conjunction with the California Botanic Garden, and these photographs are from the garden over there. But some of the ones in the book are from our garden. Of course, the smaller gardens, you sort of hesitate to cut the flowers. You know, it's hard. So the arrangements that I'm doing are not anything like this big, at least not right now. But they're so gorgeous. Everybody comments on them.
Yeah, I mean, the depth of native plant gardening, I think, is really amazing because you have very, the opportunity to do very sort of just traditional horticulture arrangements, design, all those things, which can be, I think go toe to toe with any non-native plant palette in my perspective. But you get this additional layer that Scott was mentioning with those really specific ecological interactions. And they happen all year and they connect us to the seasons and they let us, to let the land breathe, to go back to how I started tonight. They let us let the land breathe. So this is the last slide that I have for you, Susan and Scott. And I just want to thank you guys so much for being part of the tour this year and for all the work you do to promote this idea and get it out to the public. It's really quite remarkable. And so I want to just give you guys both the opportunity to give any closing thoughts on dormancy, summer, and native plant gardening in the Gottlieb Native Garden.
Well, I really like the fact that you're focusing on it because it is, and Bruce said something that was sort of funny, that he was kind of embarrassed to bring people to the garden in the summertime, but we've been bringing people, and we've had small groups that want to tour the garden, and they look at it and say, "This is so beautiful," and I'm thinking, "Oh my God, they haven't come back in the spring." But it's nice that they think it's beautiful, even they've never seen it before, and but still think it's beautiful, and that's great.
And can people sign up for those tours on your website, Susan?
Yes, they go to the website and they actually email Diane, and she sort of does all the scheduling.
Excellent.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of people through that website that way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any final parting words for us, Scott?
Sure, I would say that if you connect to the wildlife in your garden, I mean, not only are the plants showing you what season it is, but the wildlife is demonstrating what season it is too, because our native animals have evolved with our native plants, and so they keep the same rhythm as the plants, especially pollinators. And you can follow the seasons with those animals. It's brilliant. So to me, summer and fall is just as exciting as as winter and summer, or excuse me, winter and spring. It's just a different set of animals.
And thank you guys for doing all that you do.
Yeah, thank you, and looking forward to an actual tour next year.
Yeah.
Yes. So
can't wait to hear what you've got planned.
we will see you guys in person next year, and we're really looking forward to it.
A partnership that you have with the Debs Park.
Yes, yeah, we're so excited about that.
Yeah, that's
well, you'll have to come and tour once we've got it all up and running.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys so much.
All right, thanks. Take care.
Thank you.
We'll wrap up here with just thanking our sponsors. Man, we had so much support, and we just have to, including the Gottlieb Native Garden, including Native Plant Source Garden with Bruce, KPCC, Metropolitan Water District, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, Form LA Landscape, who made the beautiful garden in Tujunga that we just featured, California Native Plant Society, Patagonia, Pasadena, Studio Petrichor, where we visited in West Hollywood, our friends at Terremoto, who joined us for our opening panel discussion, Seco Verde Incorporated, Saturate, wonderful landscape management, Artemisia Nursery in El Sereno, a collective, remind me, Aaron, how to say this,
this is the upper, the logo's too small. I think it's the Upper San Gabriel Valley Water District.
Yes, it's a consortium of a number of small water districts. Southern California Garden Club, Southern California Horticultural Society, and it's Upper San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District. It's just an honor to have all the support. So we want to thank you all so much. 2021 Garden Tour has been a journey. I mean, if you followed us through the spring, it was many, many hours of work. I'm really proud. I need to give shout outs to Aaron for just being such a trooper and organizing the whole thing. Marie Astrid Gonzalez, who is the creative visionary. She was the one who took all the video, all the photos, many late nights and long hours, and just captured gardens in a way that, you know, seemed pretty unique to me. This kind of four-dimensional view of these spaces. Katie and Anjali, who are doing our chat right now, Andrew, who helped us out a ton, the whole team at Theodore Payne Foundation, all of our members, all of our donors, all of our customers, everybody who follows us and interacts with us. You're all part of this, and we just really appreciate the support and hope that we can continue collaborating and continue telling stories together, because that is what this is all about, is kind of framing the story in new, different, and exciting ways to get people to think about their gardens a little differently. And I'm seeing a lot of signs of encouragement. Every day a new person walks into the nursery. I just heard about native plants. I want more butterflies in my garden. And we're like, great, we'll help you out. So thank you to all. And with that, I think we can jump into a little sneak peek of next year, Aaron.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, 2022 Native Plant Garden Tour. We're back in person. And this year, this coming year, here's the artwork. So we have the El Segundo blue butterfly and the coastal buckwheat that it lives on, and the theme building at LAX. And why do we have the theme building at LAX here, Aaron? What's the story with this?
So this year we are going to be telling the story of nature in the city. You know, LA is a beast of a city, as you all know, and you know, putting habitat into this urban core is, you know, it's difficult and it's complicated, but we're also seeing it in a really unique way. And so, Evan, do you want to talk a little bit about the story of what the El Segundo blue is doing at LAX?
So the El Segundo blue butterfly is an endangered species of butterfly that only can live with this one particular species of buckwheat. And it only occurs at LAX, actually on LAX property. And it was, it's a coastal dune species that at one time was housing that needed to be removed for the airport, and these dunes were restored. And when they were restored, these butterflies came back. And so this story, the El Segundo blue butterfly and its place at the Los Angeles airport, is just such a kind of illustration of the contradictions of the city that we live in. It's this massive global city that has this incredibly unique, specific ecology. And we want to kind of look at those tensions and those contradictions of the place we live, because that's what makes things interesting, right? Tension and contradiction. And so that's what we'll be looking at, is how can we live with a hyper-specific, hyper-regional ecology in a big, complicated, messy global city like Los Angeles? Because if we can do it here in Los Angeles, we can do it anywhere in the world. And if we can restore nature anywhere, everywhere in the world, we're doing good. And that's a world that I want to leave to my daughter. So yeah, we have the artwork is by Buju Carmen. The other kind of fun little theme, you'll notice there's a mid-century feel. The theme building was created in 1960, the year that Theodore Payne Foundation started. And so we're excited to explore some of the history of the city through this as well. And a lot of fun kind of narrative content will be in the all the stuff that we're making for the tour. We have some really fun parties, bunch of really cool new gardens, a bunch of beautiful returning gardens. So everybody get excited. We're back in person 2022. Hope to see you all there.
Before we say goodnight to Evan, we wanted huge thanks to you as well from all of us. You know, this was a visionary project this year, and you know, it challenged us and it helped us grow and it connected us in a really different way than any other garden tour. So we're really grateful for the ambition and vision that you brought to this. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I think it was a collective ambition, and also maybe a slightly foolish ambition, but here we are, we're done. And it was a lot of fun. I learned so much and met so many cool folks. So Erin, do you have any closing thoughts as we log off here?
I've just been so inspired to see the creative ways that people embrace this challenge. You know, everything from choosing a plant palette where you're mixing island species with desert species to create these blooms throughout the entire season, to just, you know, letting go like Bruce has done with his hyperlocal native plant garden. And it's been incredibly inspiring, and I've definitely learned a lot along the way, and I'm excited to let go. How about you, Evan?
So my closing thoughts will be very simple, and they'll be the same as my opening thoughts, which is that we can let the land breathe. You know, that really has come to me as something that just is very meaningful. And I actually mentioned this, and Anjali, who just started working with us, told me that, well, that's a really, you know, common idea outside, you know, in other cultures around the world, and you've landed on something that is sort of ubiquitous in a way of people understanding and interpreting the place they are and living with it. So it feels like there's some real depth and substance to you know, some of these ideas, and I'm excited to see them grow, and excited to grow them together with all of you and do it as a collaborative community effort. And let's let the land breathe, and let's all take a deep breath and chill for a minute because we're done with this. Yeah. So thank you so much, everybody.
Cheers.
We'll see you in 2022. Cheers.
Thanks, you guys. Good night.